It's a specific question.
I'm assuming you saw that we shared our presentation with you.
I don't think that's going to be possible. Are they hiring?
Yeah. Yep. You know,
Items here.
probably.
Yes.
I said they're so good,
I refuse to be here.
Possible. It's possible.
And I did bring
One more.
paper copies. I worked the survey. But it's easier to have stuff on. I guess that's why I say paper
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Begin with the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
will establish a quorum. Approval of agenda, changes, sequence, removal of items.
So under 6B, the PHS Advanced Learning Program will be from removal. That's all.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with that removal.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Moving to announcements, we have the student representative update.
Great, so first thing, just an update. We talked about this last week. The student council put on a blood drive. I believe this was last week, Friday, I think it was. And I believe the goal was 15 people we wanted to donate blood, and we almost doubled that. We got 29 people, I think. So that was a really good turnout, and there were pictures of it, but I did not get them sent to me in time, so I'll bring those next time. And then the pre-ACT plan, we're gonna try something new this year. So while the underclassmen are taking the pre-ACT, we're gonna have the option for the other people not taking the test to go do capture the flag or outdoor activities, or watch a movie, or I think there was an option to go home. But that's just something new we're gonna try and see how it works out, since it's not.
Doesn't sound like it.
We'll put that in the
That's
I didn't think that sounded right, but I thought
It's on the road. It's on YouTube now, Sam, you guys, it's happening.
Alright, senior trip update, Maddie is technically in charge of this, but she told me that due to people not being able to make it on the scheduled days of the trip, it was originally going to be a 3-day trip, which is kind of long. A lot of people aren't going to be able to make it because of prior engagements and sports and extracurriculars and whatnot. So that's going to be switched to a day trip to the Dells. We're going to see if that works out. And then graduation 2023, just an update on it. We sent out a Google form to figure out the speaker, class flower, and class song. I do not know what the song is going to be, but flower is going to be a white rose with purple tips, And the two people who had their names voted for the most as speaker were Mr. Downs and Mr. Sankin. I don't know if any of them are available, we're gonna have to figure that out. So, talk about that next time. Any questions?
Sam, do you know what my class flower was?
Hmm.
Neither do I.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, next up is celebrations. We have the academic spotlight from high school.
Dr. Watson.
It's very good.
All right, yeah, this kind of goes along with the student themes that you all liked, and we have a very long agenda tonight. So you might all really want to be singing this when, by the end of the meeting. So let's start the job pieces, see how the things sound set. Set for the captain of shore, and let me go home. Let me go home. I wanna go home. When life feels so break up, I wanna go home. Yes, I'm Joan Frericks, the music teacher impersonator. So, the music, the elementary students have been enjoying their singing, practicing rhythms, playing instruments, recorder, right? Dancing. I try to get them moving and playing games as much as I can. I'm really excited that there are about 14 high schoolers and about 20 middle schoolers that are going to perform at Stratford Solo Ensemble this year. That's a great number. There's a lot of sixth graders out doing solos. There's a duet, 8th grade duet, 7th grade duet, and a 6th grade duet. So it's very exciting. Delaney Komorowski went to the Dorian Vocal Festival. She was part of a choir that had 900 kids in it. It was very inspiring. I enjoy the PLC time. I get to collaborate with Tom on so many things that we just really need to touch base with. I enjoy looking at a virtual member. I'm a virtual member of an elementary music educators idea bank. That's really helpful. And like I said, working with Tom, he's like, you need to tell them, you need to help them to know what the names of the instruments are, the note names, rhythms, things like that. It helps me to know what I can help out at the younger ages for those older kids as they get into band and choir. And we have a spring concert coming up on May 18th, so we're keeping busy now. Thanks.
One more.
Oh, this is my favorite. Dale Yeski tuned our pianos, and I was mentioning to him that I have a couple of auto harps that were broken, the strings were broken, and Hyde Music could not replace the strings, they couldn't find them or something. I don't know, COVID or what, but he took them home, he lived in Clover, and he replaced the strings, so the kids are loving listening to some music with the auto harp.
Well, I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to follow that. The band program is doing reasonably well after the changeover and fairly active. Middle school is doing a really fine job. You have Ashton Decker, who not long ago went to the University of Wisconsin at Eau Claire. He was nominated and selected for an honors band program. He gets private lessons, and so even though he's a 7th grader, he's probably playing at about a sophomore level. He's doing an excellent job. As was mentioned, we have the solo ensemble coming up. We've got 10 people going for the middle school, pretty much all doing duets. Let's just say that 6th graders, although they love to be involved, they also don't like to be judged. And that's what they're going to be forced to do. So we'll see how that happens. We've got the concert, and I do have about 6 middle school students who are in grade 6 that are playing well enough that I'm going to incorporate them into the graduation performance. High school, same type of things that the choir's been doing. We had 3 students who attended the Dorian Festival down in Decorah, Iowa, just a couple of weeks ago. And they participated in one of 3 bands. And I'm not entirely sure, I didn't have the exact numbers, but probably every band had, the smallest band probably had just over 100 in it, and the other 2 probably had 130, 140 in them. Do they participate in the band program? Yes, and plus they get private lessons from the college staff. So that's very valuable to them. We've got the solo ensemble coming up where we've got the jazz combo. With any luck, we're going to try to repeat ourselves and go to state at first. We'll see. And the spring concert, and again, the high school students performing at graduation. One more? Yes. Oops, I thought I saw a question. PLC, it's really super nice to be working with Joan and other people that I get to see online from CWC. I've called the state a couple of times during that time for answers to questions of solo ensemble. Data is a little bit difficult on a band. So much of it is subjective, is what I hear, but we have found ways to work some of that out. And so that's beneficial to me. Most of that time, now this is going to sound a little strange, being an old man, the hardest part of teaching back here in Wisconsin is being back here in Wisconsin. I can tell you in the ins and outs of music, I have trouble telling you what is different between Arizona and Wisconsin, and Kuwait and Wisconsin, and a few other places that I've been. So I'm really learning the ropes with Joan and others of how I can incorporate the curriculum in Wisconsin to the Wisconsin standards. So there you go. Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Oh yeah, please.
What, are you planning to have any role at Memorial Day or 4th of July? With, and then also, what are your thoughts about lessons and different things throughout the summer?
Well, good question. I have got, I have submitted a plan for summer school, and so there will be beginning band, intermediate band, and high school band during the summer, or at least high school lessons during the summer. We're attempting, if I understand this correctly, we're attempting to do something a little different. The upcoming new students, the next year's 5th graders, I want to get them started in June, so that when the first day of school hits, they already know how to play a few notes. And we'll see if that works out, and that'll be during the summer. You mentioned the July 4th. Yes. I'm counting on putting something together for July 4th. It may not be quite as loud and raucous as it was last year, since we're graduating an awful lot of seniors again, but I do plan to do something. Memorial Day is a little bit trickier, only because we're losing so many of the high school students that I'm not quite sure what we can do. It's in the back of my mind. I know it's something important to the community. I'm just not quite sure what I can do that.
Thank you.
All right, Art. Some of the highlights from this year, from this past quarter, Empty Bowls and Art Show was last Tuesday. It was a huge success. I think we had 400 to 500 people there. We sold all 420 bowls that we made, which was pretty incredible. The 8th grade mural, if you have a chance or if you haven't seen it, it is in between administration and primary wing. The whole 8th grade is doing that, so 42 kids all have a part in that, and every student has been able to help in some way, so that's been really cool to see. I'm sorry if any of you painted the green people, they are now gone. And another thing that's super cool is that every student was showcased or represented in the art show, so K through 8, every student had one piece, and then anyone in high school classes did as well, so that was pretty cool. How I've seen improvement in student learning through PLC work, networking with other art teachers,
has been super beneficial as a singleton. In this district, it's been super beneficial to reach out to other districts. I'm actually still in contact with a lot of workers that I went to college with who also teach K through 12. So that's been very helpful to see assessments, lesson plans, things that they're doing in their classroom that can also be beneficial here. So I use that time to kind of reach out to them. I also work with the specialist teachers and kind of align some of our common assessments together for work skills. So perseverance, working hard, things like that. So that's been super nice. And then a better understanding and approach to assessment and instruction. I feel like that time is just valuable to reach out to other colleagues, other specialist teachers, other art teachers in the area. So that's been beneficial. Vertical alignment is a little tricky because I'm a singleton, so I'm the only one in my department. But collaborating with other art teachers has been helpful to see what their curriculums look like, so I can help align my curriculum in a more beneficial way for the students. The standards and learning targets build on each other from grade level to grade level. So second grade, we work on the elements of art. Third grade, we go to cultures and different forms of art. So it kind of builds off each other year to year. So that's kind of how I use my vertical time to structure my curriculum. Any questions?
When you work with other teachers, are you able to do that either in person or live, or do you have to do that?
So there's a couple teachers that I can do Google Meets because they actually have the Wednesday time, same as us. But otherwise, I have a couple like folders that we all just put stuff in, and then we can like comment on them and email back and forth. So that's been helpful. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we will move to the Crystal Apple recipients for 2023.
So we were fortunate at the Pittsville School District to have two of our staff members honored earlier this year as Teachers of Distinction. I'm going to turn it over to the two building principals to introduce their staff members in attendance tonight and talk about how they're going to be honored.
So I'll start. So I'll introduce Ms. Alex Madden. So she was honored as the Crystal Apple recipient from the high school. Couldn't think of a more worthy person. I didn't nominate her. The nominations I would have, but other people, the nominations can come from students, colleagues, people in the community, and the support was obvious when you were nominated. A lot of that behind the scenes. I'm aware that you're doing, but the things that we highlighted during the Panther Pride Award in May are still true, right? The ways that Alex fills gaps and the extraordinary way that she teaches. I couldn't think of a better person to be nominated for this. So we're proud of the work you do, and congratulations.
And we have Mr. Klein from the elementary school. So as Rod said, this process starts with students recognizing and nominating, then it goes to staff. And then from there, the principal does a recommendation, and then they do interviews with the local business reps from Marshfield. And from the interviews, then they select one of four winners, and Mr. Klein is one of our 4 winners for this year. So big round of applause for that. When he was nominated, Ms. Rago and I were very excited that he had to do a speech, but here I am, Ron. So I can't really say enough about Ron. I think his relationships with staff members is amazing. They go to him for problem solving. He has good connections with them. He's highly respected. When it comes to students, the students love Ron. He has amazing, genuine relationships with our students. It helps tremendously with him as dean of students that the kids feel comfortable, safe going to him. And Ron is very open and honest with his conversations. And he's always being proactive and teaching the kids what can we do to move forward to be more successful and to be successful. And his relationships and connections with families is very amazing. He makes an effort to call families, communicate with them, share the good, help solve problems with families. So he's amazing with that. And then I think one of the best things about Ron is his connection to the community. He very much believes in the partnership between school and community, so he's done a lot of great things to raise money for different places in our community. He's done the Christmas shop for many years. He's walked 20 miles to raise money for books and for places in the community. So I couldn't imagine a wonderful candidate than Ron. So congratulations.
Not to speak for these two, but I think what makes these awards even more special is, like Dr. Watson articulated, the students and the staff, their colleagues and the students select you too. So kudos to both of you, and I think great choices with both of you. We're very proud and appreciate that you're representing us.
Can you remind us of the date?
If I knew it off the top, it's April.
It's May 4th.
It's
Thank
May
you.
4th.
May 4th.
It's in my
I think there'd be
it's in
some-
my calendar. I don't have it memorized. May 4th? And certainly, so being new to this process up here, are we limited with the number of attendees? Is there like each person can,
No, everybody in the district is invited.
all right, let's
Everybody
pack the
is
house up
invited.
there then for this one.
I think it's at
Seats up.
Marshfield Hotel Marshfield.
Like 5? If anyone-
We'll send out details when the time comes to staff, because I certainly think they would appreciate it to have support. But congratulations.
I come out around weeks, remember?
Are you gonna ask me any other dates here? Should I be prepared? Okay. I'll pull my calendar out. So, I have to confess, Sam lied
Oh,
for a good cause. So Elizabeth, I went to Sam and asked Sam to help me out here tonight to get his family here to the board meeting. So, the reason is I would like to have the Bowden family step up here to be recognized, because you are receiving, have we ever given out a family Panther Pride Award before? We have now. Yeah, come on up. The whole family. So, for those that don't know, and I doubt the Bowden family single-handedly operates, runs, facilitates youth basketball in Pittsville. Like, there wouldn't be youth basketball without the Bowden family. They organize it, they run the concessions, the kids ref and run around, they're runners, they work the concession stands. And I genuinely mean that. The time they put into this is unbelievable to benefit the kids here and getting things going after COVID. Youth programs were devastated through COVID, and they worked tirelessly this year to get that up and running. And then to have two kids who were in high school programs at the same time, I wanted to acknowledge them. I coached in the youth basketball program, and it was like overwhelming for me just to coach a team, let alone to do what they did, and make coaches too. So I wanted to recognize the entire family with the Panther Pride Award, and I do have pins for each of you. Mom and Dad get special pins, the kids get little Panther head pins here. So, thank you for all that. For certain,
I got it.
I want you to take their picture. And sign a waiver in case you vote yourself. There you go. I'll look for that at your little tally graduation. Thank you. And that's precisely why they get the award too, is that they acknowledge that it takes many, but the work that they do to get that going is appreciated.
Okay, we'll move to the district administrator update.
All right. Lots of celebrations this month. There's a lot going on this time of year. You've heard reference to this already. I know Maria talked about it. The Empty Bowls Fund. My first experience with this, I was flabbergasted by the turnout, first of all, and it never should amaze me here with the way Pittsville would turn out to support their community. 420 bowls sold, and there were still people coming after that. The bowls were all gone, and there were still people coming through getting soup. I did communicate to staff a funny little story with my first experience with the Empty Bowls fundraisers. My wife bought advance tickets, and she said, "Do you want me to grab you a bowl?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Big or little?" And I was like, "Big?" Question mark, exclamation point. Because when I showed up, of course, I'm thinking, you get soup in the bowl that you buy. So I was like, why don't we take a small bowl? give me like a punch bowl, right? So then when I got there, I saw, okay, I get it now. So I have a really big bowl, covered in one. It's like a popcorn bowl, but the bowls were unbelievable. The Pottery Club, I mean, they are just fantastic. Everyone original. I was impressed. Marilyn Massance and Miss Maria organized and run this. The art show was unbelievable. The work that was put into this, and then the number of staff that volunteered to help district-wide was impressive. In the community, showed the line was going down the primary hallway for most of the evening, so it was very impressive. The soups were excellent. We had, I listed it in my weekly update, that we had many businesses and individuals that donated money, and by the time all the bills are paid, it's gonna be over $4,000 that's gonna go to pants, so great cause. Some pictures. Lots of happy faces. Read Across America Week. They did stories, costumes, crafts, friends. I wish I could have probably filled like 20 slides up with the photos. There were so many neat photos from the week, so I had to kind of be selective as I picked through and try to pick some of the photos. But the kids and the staff really get engaged with this. I love this. I don't have a ton of experience in my educational career outside of middle school and high school, so to see these things are kind of new to me and special experiences. You heard this from Mr. Weger, I think already I mentioned it, the Dorian Band Film Festival. We had our 3 students that participated. There were over 300 students there. You'll find out that we have a lot of, for a small district, we have a lot of things going on, a lot of experiences that staff create opportunities for our students to experience things outside of our region here, which is something that's important. Discovery Days at Midstate. The entire 7th grade recently took a trip. They went to Discovery Days, and more or less they did a career inventory, and then they were able to go around and look at different career clusters and experiment with different programs that are offered at MSTC. We had a group of PHS students that were interested in engineering. I don't know, maybe Ms. Kay, can you explain how they were selected? They just identified that they had an interest in engineering.
Yep, Mrs. Downs took them.
Okay. So they did a design and created wind generators and solar panel powered lights, and then they had to select a problem in their community to create like a green solution for and present their findings, and then they had an opportunity to meet with real engineers. Our career and technical education night, I don't know what to compare it to. I thought the turnout was, there were people coming through. What I was the most impressed with is student-led. The student demonstrations, and we have some very talented students. I learned more about rabbits than I ever thought. What, for real, like it was like, I did not know that. I thought, there was like maybe 5 types of rabbits. But, and I got to see our new piece of equipment that was in our new CNC mill, which you can see in the top left. That was in for, I wish Stephen were to tell me, only a week or so before the demonstration. It had just come in, and we had the students demonstrating how to use this piece of equipment. That's about a $50,000 piece of equipment. The head is so, on there alone is like $700 for the head, just a cutting tool. And if you operate it incorrectly, which is why they didn't let me touch it, then you have to replace the head. So I found out more, and I have a little bit of knowledge about some of those things, but I found out a lot from the students once again were doing the presentations. Can you back up? One I thought was really neat was the virtual welder, the welding component. So you can do a virtual weld and practice your welds, and it gives you feedback. So they had a machine up front that the folks, that's the top right pictures, they were doing welds, different styles of welds with a little welding like the wand, but all done without the materials, and you get the same feedback. So it gets a lot of kids a lot of repetition before they're actually using the actual material. I thought that was very impressive. So coming up, I had reached out to our, it's important that we make connections, and with the budget process coming up, that we make connections with our elected officials. And I had reached out to both Senator Teston and Representative Vandermeer, and both of them responded immediately. And I had offered a tour to come and meet us and tour the facilities. And So Senator Teston is coming on March 20th, and then Representative Vandermeer had to reschedule she was gonna come in at the end of March. She's coming on the 28th now to visit Pittsville and kind of tour our campus and hear all the great things, like some of the stuff we presented here, so we'll take them through. And we're gonna have Chef Matt, although I should probably be careful about having Chef Matt goes way out of his way with food. We don't want him to think we're eating too well here, right? So our final season updates for our 3 winter sports programs right now. The wrestling team finished with an 8-6 record, which was 5th in the Central Wisconsin Conference. Senior captains Easton Donovan and Dryden Luther led the team. We had 8 individuals qualified for sectionals. Did not have anybody qualify for the state meet, but coach was very proud of the individuals. And the thing about wrestling, I was not a wrestler. I probably don't even need to say that. Most people look at me and say we didn't wrestle. When you have lower numbers, it's particularly impressive what we do with a school our size when you're able to fill the weight classes and do what we do. So obviously Pittsville has a long, proud wrestling tradition here, so these folks upheld that this year. Boys basketball team season did not, and I said the Sam season did not end the way we wanted it to, but there's only a handful of teams that get to leave, without suffering that heartbreaking loss. I said this is that basketball game that night. I wish I wasn't a Pittsville fan, because that would be a game to just go watch as a basketball fan, and it would have been like an unbelievable basketball game. Unfortunately, when you're pulling for one team, there has to be a team that loses. That was a game that I think you would just say, I wish no one had to lose, but it doesn't work that way. It was a great basketball game, and they had a great season. I commented to Coach Denniston, I was impressed. I never once saw a player on that team all year long talk back to their coach or give him a dirty look or argue with each other. Like, that was very telling about the culture that exists in the program. So, and they did get to experience, they played 2 games on the new court. But Sam, nice job. So we had 2 all-conference recipients. Sam, second team, and Marcus made honorable mention. And even arguably more impressive is that we had 3 academic all-state recipients. So Sam, Matt Goodell, and Dawson Luther were all acknowledged as academic all-state. Okay, the girls basketball program. Girls, if you talk to them, would probably say they probably didn't feel, and that's the thing about playoffs, you got to bring it every night. You got to come to play every night, or it's over. And they would probably tell you, we wish we would have maybe did some things differently. But all in all, same thing as I said for the boys, is the kids, you could tell the girls enjoyed playing together. They played like they wanted to be out on the court with each other, which is not always the case, having been around basketball my entire adult life. We had 3 all-conference recipients for the girls. First team was Reese, second team Bryn, and Haley was honorable mention. And I don't know about the I didn't get an academic all-state update. So I know they have it for girls. I didn't hear if it was announced yet or not, but I will put that next month's update if it is. So the varsity gym update. For most of you, by now you probably had the fortune to go into the gym. If not, you need to. It's absolutely beautiful, the job they did. This was one of those situations where I was kind of worried about like those nailed it memes that you see, that it was going to be like, oh, please let this be. It surpassed everything that we thought from the designs and the layouts. The maple, just the whole layout of the floor was fantastic, and the LED lights. We had the LED light upgrade while the gym floor was being repaired, and that's going to end up being cost effective for us down the road. We're going to actually save money. We have those lights put in, and it is really it brightened the gym up significantly. So much so that we need to get the walls painted. For those of you that put new lights in your house, then you're like, wow, we really need to paint the walls. We need to paint the walls. But anyway, fantastic job by Soccer Flooring. Dan Giles and his crew did a phenomenal job of coordinating everything. There were 9 floors being replaced geographically at the same time by Stalker Flooring, so they were kind of balanced and trying to get around to the different places. But very happy with how the floor turned out. I think that might be it right there. Okay. Any questions?
Consent agenda items. Meeting notice certification, regular and closed session minutes from February 6th, special meeting minutes from February 16th, financial status, resignations and retirements, and hirings.
I'm guessing that the one resignation was with the contract agreements. So the early leave we implemented, aren't there?
Yes.
So all of that, okay, I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving to discussion action. We begin with the high school course handbook updates.
Dave Watson.
All right, we got 3 things on here, and so now you have to tell me like what goes where, because I think there's some things you gotta vote on and some things are just approval. So we have new course catalog, our college course report, and then a temporary new class request. So I'm gonna present with Mrs. Kay, and Mr. Albenito introduced to you. This is our student teacher, Mr. Albenito, Pittsville School Board, Pittsville Community. He's learning under the tutelage of Mr. Dennison. Okay, so here's your agenda. We promised you fast, and it's a long agenda, but we're going to review briefly. I think we have one new board member, and anybody that wasn't here for last year, where we're going as a school, and we changed last year. New class this year, class is shell. We don't have any questions about that, because this is one of the most important things we do as a school, so we'll first offer for our students. Talk about some of our goals moving forward, and then we'll talk about our college classes that we're offering, and then Mr. Albenito will talk about the new starting class. You were going to joke too? No jokes. Okay, all right. See you later. Okay, so we'll read to you, just tell you briefly that we make changes every year in the course handbook based on what the students tell us. If they're asking Mrs. K for certain kinds of classes, she'll tell me. We work with Mid-State and with other colleges to see what kind of classes they need when kids are coming in. Some has to do with staffing. You'd like to offer a class, nobody speaks Chinese, you're not offering Chinese, right? So it's really difficult, right? So we figure out those things out. And just how things work with a really small school, you might love to offer a class, there might not be enough interest to run it every year. So we gotta figure out, is this one we offer every other year? And then does that mean that our kids no one should lose access, right? And so if we offer it every other year, the seniors gotta know that ahead of time, so they have a chance to take it. So last year we shelved 2 AP classes, one because the expertise left with retirement, one wasn't working very well, and one there was low student interest and the teacher wanted to retool it. We added in classes, and the theme you'll see is that we're adding rigor to our school, and then we added an advanced art class. Ms. Landgraf wanted to make sure the students who had art the entire period had already taken it as a smaller block and had shown that they're very focused on that as something, a skill they want to grow. And then Mr. Nod has talked about as he's come into our district, making sure we don't have like dates in the way of students. And so if you have a prerequisite, make sure there's a way for students to take it if they never get a chance to take that prerequisite. And so Ms. Landgraf does let students test into that class or show proficiency if they don't have a chance to take the skinny version of the art class. Stats is a weakness we saw we didn't offer. A lot of our peers did. It did kind of show up in the ACT that we weren't offering stats. This will not solve that problem because a lot of kids take it after the ACT. But we just know the ACT shows us the kids have a weakness in statistics, and that's a math skill you use in life. And so Mr. Grossman taught that. It might go every other year with pre-calc once we get more rhythm going. We had no STEM classes at the high school. We had classes with CTE and with math and motion that were similar. This one's spot on, science and technology focused. Right now it's focused on Science Olympiad. That might not stay forever. Right now, we're always gonna have Science Olympiad as a club as long as I'm working here if I can. But making that class focus on that, we might not always do that, or do we will for the next year. Civics and econ were not offered at the high school, and that was remarkable when I started. And so I looked at the other CWC schools, and nearly every one of them required it, and I couldn't figure out why we didn't offer them. We did require the Constitution test because the state does. And so we added those, and then geography and restaurant management, which is dual credit. We also changed the requirement to make speech required for graduation, but I want to make sure everybody here knew that you can get that 4 ways. You just got to have the speech requirement. So you can take the speech class, the dual credit speech class. Cranberry science is all speaking, so I had to rotate through that. And then oral and interpersonal communication. So 2 of those classes will get you actual credit for college. That was last year.
That's me.
All right.
All right, so for the next school year, we have a few choices that we'd like to talk about. So first of all, talking to Mr. Jordan Rayburn, we're gonna be offering basics of computing. It's similar to what we had talked about with our intro to computer programming last year, but they're gonna be revamping the class to add HTML, internet security, and then also doing some coding as well. In addition to that, we'll be offering AP Biology, which is going to be primarily a sophomore student class, as biology is taken during their sophomore year for their high school graduation requirement. It'll be taught by Ms. Folk, who is new to our district this school year. And it'll be fall semester during the second block, so students will be able to take that obviously for AP credit in conclusion of the May 2024 school year. We will also be offering AP Government, which will be taught during fourth block by Mr. Belanti. That will be another opportunity for students to get AP credit / college credit, and that will also fulfill our graduation requirement for civics. So students could take civics, or they could take AP Government for that requirement. And then last but not least, in our Career and Technical Education Department, we'll be offering Advanced Entrepreneurship, which will be an opportunity for our senior students to be able to work one-on-one with our 4 CTE teachers in that specific subject area to gain advanced training in that specific subject. So example, if they wanted to work with Mr. Hadfield in advanced manufacturing throughout the year, that would be an opportunity to get that completed, which would be similar to replacing a teacher assistant, which is a pass-fail course, but this course would be offered for credit along with having a curriculum.
If you think about colleges when they accept students, or technical college, any college, when they're looking at a transcript, what's going to stand out more, teacher assistant or advanced entrepreneurship, right? Like that class is going to have a curriculum and have a focus other than just doing what the teacher asks them to do.
Makes sense.
So we had to shelve some classes based on turnover in staff and based on student interest. 3 of them were necessary. One, we just don't have room for it. So I want to talk to the third bullet point the most. You can read the other 3 if you want. AutoCAD is an important class we offer. Filling it is not always easy. There is a decent interest in it. We just don't have the room in the schedule for it. When we opened this wing last year, we want to make sure that many students had access to our real capstone classes as possible. And one bottleneck that Mrs. K identified is that in order to take the beginning class to get you into building and construction trades, you had to take welding or woods, and it didn't always fit into students' schedule. And so we opened up another section of woods right this year, which will give more students access to class, probably the capstone class I consider from Mr. Hadfield, but it means that we won't be able to offer that section of AutoCAD. So what I've asked Mrs. K to do is keep her ears open. We'll change it every year, we're still gonna offer it, but if students are going into the senior year really counted on, we didn't know that, we'll find a different option for them, so we're not gonna take opportunities from anybody. I haven't heard yet if that's been the case, but something we're aware of, because taking dual credit out of your handbook for a year, that's a loss, right? But when students say they can't get into buildings and construction because they've never gotten the prereq and now they're seniors, they just can't say that, that's the problem. So, and I saw from your email today that the opening classes are filling up pretty fast. Any questions on that one? Okay. Mr. Dodd and I have had a lot of conversations about this. Mrs. Grossman and I have talked about this a lot too. Block scheduling in AP is not easy. Do you have block scheduling? Nope. You took 7 AP classes? Senior year. Oh. So schools are able to offer more opportunities sometimes when they can have the class throughout the whole year. So an AP test is in May. If you have a class from September to January, you have 3 months to lose all that information, right? And so you have to keep studying throughout that. If you take the class from January to May, 3 or 4 weeks of your class happen after the test. And so Mrs. Grossman shares whenever she goes to AP conferences, that's the first thing they say is you're teaching a block, good luck with that. And so there are models that work, and one we're moving towards. First of all, I don't want students taking US history and then AP US history. Take one or the other, right? And so that way you're not repeating a course. Same thing with biology. And then we want to move to a system, this would come to you for approval, or we talked about this, we got to it, we can't do this yet for next year, where they would have the classes throughout the year. And they would have, like on an A day, for instance, they'd have AP Bio and a B day AP US history throughout the whole year, right? Because that longitudinal exposure to that information, that content will prepare them much better than like the drinking from a fire hose you get if you try to get too fast. So there's a couple ways you can do that. Mr. Nod told me there's some ways that work for him in his last district where you have it every other day, or you can do it as skinnies, or you can do a first term, third term, second term, fourth term. There's a few different models, and I want to consult AP teachers to see what would work best for that. Next year, we have 2 teachers teaching AP classes for the first time, and that's a really challenging thing to learn. And so I'm trying to not stress them out too much, but this is kind of how I see that rhythm. I don't have any AP offerings for freshmen yet. That would be something we'd want to move back into, maybe human geography, or we talked about art perhaps, or some freshman class. That'd be hard to get them ready for freshman year. But right now, if you want to take all the AP classes we have at our school, this is the flow I'd like. students to get to. AP Calc's a hard one, 'cause you really gotta get through a lot of math classes before you're ready for that one. And the pre-calc class that comes before that is really gotta get scheduled for AP Calc. So we're not ever going to be able to offer the number of AP classes some other schools do. But we do offer all the other college classes and the dual credit classes, and with our virtual network, we offer as many opportunities, but in-house, these are the classes we're offering right now. So this is something I'm still working on. And we'll get feedback from anybody as we keep working on this, but I know that my two new teachers, Mr. Valenti and Ms. Fode, are gonna go to AP conferences and see what other districts do really well too.
So Dr. Watch, do you want to touch on that? Is that about which teachers can teach AP courses?
Well, anybody who is certified in a content area can teach AP courses. It's just a matter of who's ready and trying to make sure that they're not taking on too much. You know, we hired Ms. Fode this year, she had to learn 7 classes. You know, so on top of that with AP and level burden, as we're trying to go easier on teachers too, but yeah, anybody can teach it. It's not like dual credit, you have to have a master's degree in that content for dual credit. That's real high standard there.
So I would tell you the work that they have to do to put this together. The reason it's important to have these types of presentations and know what goes into building a high school schedule. And it is student driven. The students tell them by their selections, this is what we need to do. And then to think not only about the career, but 4 years out, like what's going to, so I know the amount of time that this took you and the staff. So this is impressive. And thank you for putting the time to build this out schedule for our students.
90% Emily, I think.
The Marshall High School uses the AB style,
Yeah.
so they have even days.
Right, and that's something I'm open to. Were there any questions, Dan?
I just have one question. You made a comment about looking at doing things differently for AP.
Yeah.
Is there any consideration to go away from block and go into a different structure?
Not for the whole school, no. There's so much evidence behind how it works for us.
Okay.
It works really well with our dual credit system. It works really well with our internship system and our apprenticeships. I mean, there's too much. You can always find the pendulum swing with blocks and traditional, right? And so I have not heard any staff member say they want to go from block, and I certainly not entertain that.
Okay.
But we can run any kind of alternate period within there we want. We just got just limited our own creativity.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, college courses. So just a reminder, okay, go ahead.
Okay.
She's got a reminder for you.
Okay, so some terminology. So the state of Wisconsin offers 2 types of college credit programming. The Start College Now, or SCN, is offered by our Wisconsin Technical College System. And then our Early College Credit, or ECCP, is offered by our 4-year UW or private university system. And so any student that's 16 or older can start taking these classes as a part of their sophomore, junior, or senior schedule. It's most commonly taken during their senior year because it offers the most flexibility. And one of the great benefits of this program is that there are many, but one of the great benefits is that students are getting college credit right away while they're in high school, but they're also being subjected to college coursework while they're still here in the safe clutches of Pittsville High School. So we can help them throughout. So in addition to that, that does come as a cost to the district, and that is partially for tuition as well as materials / books and fees. And so we work together closely with Pam and Jason on getting those classes paid for. But these classes have been offered since before my time as a school counselor, but have only gained in popularity since the last 10 years that I've been here. So we're very happy to offer these. We've got a couple students in the room that have taken advantage of those opportunities, and they gave a thumbs up. So we'll talk a little bit about their responses with that.
So we have changed the way we present this to you. This is different than how we've done it before, and so please give us feedback if there's something different you want out of this. We have a few graphs as far as what class the kids have been taking and how they feel about those classes, and then we can bring whatever you want to us as we do these presentations. Okay, so let's look at these numbers real quick. We have 17 classes currently in progress. So a lot of students take these classes in the spring of their upperclassmen years. As you can see here, we got a pretty big spike this year in interest in these classes. And we really had to put our heads together and figure out why. Because going from 3 SCN classes in one school year to 22, that's amazing. And so the answer we came up with is that the process for enrolling in it is much better than it was. The form for enrolling in it is quite flawed. Right, and so figuring out one problem is you're signing for classes that don't really exist yet, right? They're in theory, we don't know if they're gonna run, we don't know if they fit in your schedule, and so if you sign up for it, and then it doesn't run the way you want it to, you're out of luck. So figuring that piece out, knowing what's primary and what's alternate, and telling them to fill that out so that families have to schedule or like budget for 7 classes, we know you're only trying to take 2. That's something we're trying to get better at. A lot of the sign up for these classes happened when we were getting through a pandemic, right? So I don't know if that was like just a basic, I'm tired of online, I don't want to do that anymore. That's a good guess. But obviously we had quite a need here and interest in this last year. And another theory too. It's probably a good one. Honestly, I guess the best thing is when you have a small school, you can see the personality of the classes, and the current seniors and juniors are go-getters. I mean, that's a lot of upperclassmen in college classes.
It's also much easier to roll in mid-state technical college classes because they get to register with the rest of the student population. Versus early college credit programming, they have to register 2 weeks before the semester starts, and that's after the rest of the college students have enrolled. So they get literally the last pick of everything.
Okay. By semester, you can see that it's more popular in the spring. And we had 2 students taking summer classes this year. That's pretty, you couldn't recall that happening before.
First time?
So, what else going on this summer? These are the classes that they took this year.
So you'll see a variety of courses. Number 1, you'll see your core or your main college credit classes, such as Intro to Psychology, Intro to Sociology, Intro to Ethics, Intro to or College 101. Those are your preliminary entry-level courses for core credits. And then you'll also see a variety of elective courses where students are really starting to dig down into their careers. So accounting, criminal justice ethics, pre-petition radiography, that's to get into the radiography program at North Central Technical College, anatomy and physiology. So you'll see where students are really getting into the weeds within their majors for the courses that they're requesting that we don't currently offer at Pittsville High School.
Okay, we had those are 2 classes that the young lady speaking this year, and then the fall approved, and this is all pending what actually happens in real life, right? So a lot of life happens before then. We have 16 students requesting courses. We estimate that they want to take about 19 classes. Some students take 2. And so most just want 1 class. Sometimes a class has different credit levels, though, right? Like it's 1 credit, 2 credit, over 4. These are classes required. You can see Intro to Psych is pretty popular, and then obviously we can't fulfill that without AP Psych in our school right now.
And then our student feedback, students in here that would like to talk to us, you certainly can, but of the students that were surveyed from this fall semester, they're taking classes to save money, college credits, and further their education. Out of the 7 students that took classes, 6 of them felt very prepared to take their fall level courses. So you're talking about juniors and seniors that are current right now. And then all 7 students felt that as a result of taking this class, that they're ready to push themselves further for courses here at our school and courses outside, which is the entire goal of graduation 2023 and 2024.
Mrs. Kay, is there a limit to the number of courses that students can take through these programs?
Yes, there's 18. You can only take 18 your entire course career. We have never had a student achieve that, so we set the bar high. But typically students take 1 to 2 classes, like Rod had said, at a time to ease their way in, and also obviously meeting the rest of the requirements that they need to do for graduation.
Okay, thank you. Any questions about our college classes? You raised the hand.
This is a great program. This is, and I really thank you both for getting all the students involved with this. And glad we discussed it earlier last year, and I should say last year. But one of the classes that we skipped over here just was the diversity studies.
Yeah. And
that was brought up last year and kind of explained to us. We had some questions about that, or I know I had some questions about that. And you assured us that there would be some type of a discussion prior to and or after that class, some type of briefing or debriefing. And I'm just kind of following up to find out what kind of briefing or debriefing has been done before or after that class.
Yeah.
You or Ms. Kay.
Okay, good question. So just so everybody knows that class is required to get the industry-related certificate in human resources. So anybody wants to go into HR, that's a class they recommend for that. What I referred to, and I apologize if I misspoke, is if we ever brought that to you as a course request to have on our campus, that we would go through that process. I have not audited this class and what they offer there. I could look into it and find out what that content looks like. That's important to me. But I did not intend to do that with the online class.
And Dr. Watson, that was specifically, I remember that course was the one component that if a student wanted to get there, that was the one thing that would prohibit them.
Yeah,
From,
it's
from,
completely necessary. We don't offer here, and I don't think we'd ever, just looking at the numbers to take it, I don't know that we'd ever have the interest to run a full section. That'd be hard to fill.
Well, we knew that there was gonna be an online class last year.
Chris, what I meant last year though is if I brought it to you as a course, like to put it in our handbook and have Mr. Blondie teach it, was something we flirted with, that I would then present that like I do with our classes here, and it would go in the course description and in the handbook. For the online classes, what they teach, we don't have any control over that.
Well, you may have meant that, but the way we took it was, this class, even though it's offered online, and you don't have a lot of control, or Ms. K have a lot of control over how this class is taught. You assured us that somebody would still talk to these students before and or after to brief or debrief them, even on this online.
Well, I'm more than happy to talk to kids about the class one. I think that's important.
All right, thank you.
But the difference of these classes is it is a university class of which we don't control any of the curriculum, the university does. So it's more of the approval
for kids to have the
to
option.
allow the kids to take a college class that is being taught. I mean, like, we don't have any control over that. We could have, the only control we have is to not approve letting the kid take a class and
Right.
us pay for it.
And we do have some push ability. If we had a class we found objectionable in any
Oh,
way, we
sure.
could talk to the professor. We have some, I mean, because
Sure.
we're paying those two.
Sure.
But
That
we're
sounds
just the boys.
I just want to say that I think the really strong, like what is so positive about the SCN or the ECCP are students are taking this and passing the class. An AP class is all contingent on do you pass the test. And so just from a parent and seeing what that looks like and what they've gone through, it's like you can spend an entire year or semester. And if you just didn't pass the test at that particular moment,
Right.
it's like you've missed that whole opportunity where this is a full experience of
Yeah,
kind of what that
Right, and
looks
our
like.
average grade is a high B or low A, you know.
Right.
And
Absolutely,
by the way, if we ever do AP art, which Senator kind of talked about, that's not a test, that's a portfolio.
correct,
So,
yeah,
And they're paying $97 an AP exam too. The
Correct.
families do.
No pressure.
so it's really quite exciting to offer it because I think it offers students to be able to experience what they're gonna be going into, how to get into the system and sign up for a class and how to kind of facilitate that whole process. So it's very, very exciting.
Need to do a comment?
Yeah, I was just wondering what the cost is, what the school pays, the same an individual would pay if they were gonna go take this class?
Ooh, I don't know.
So there's a bit of a cost difference. I don't know specifically what it comes down to if we get a less price, but I do know what we pay for and what we don't pay for. So for early college credit courses, we only pay for tuition. Students are responsible for books and materials and fees. For technical college courses, we pay for tuition and then books. So there is you get a little bit more through the technical college system. But as far as if you were paying, you know, Johnny out of pocket versus Pittsville School District, I don't know if it's a different cost. Pam, can you speak to that?
It does, the ECCP difference is it taken for high school credit and college credit, so there's different percent breaks. But every, like the technical colleges have different costs, you know, and I don't know what the break is on that. We get like 80% cost of what it costs, like a normal person off the street to take the same class, and I think ECCP is right around the same. So it's still a significant cost, but I mean, it's cost that the student doesn't have to pay out of pocket as well.
It's really a hidden gem with the ability to take up to 18 credits for families that are able to utilize it. It's a wonderful program.
And I'm not sure what it is this year, but last year, the cost to a family was double what it cost their district. Just because I specifically asked if my son wanted to take another one that wasn't approved, what would the cost be? So at least last year, it was a savings to the district from what typical tuition looks like, which is awesome.
We got one more thing for you folks?
Okay, so this is my slide. So I think I need a little bit of context here because probably we got people like, why is the student teacher guy pitching a class in front of the school board meeting? But I'm not your normal run-of-the-mill student teacher. I went to UWSP. I got a bachelor's in physics with a minor in astronomy and mathematics. And then I'm going through an online school to get licensure and a master's in education for science teaching through a school called Western Governors University, or WGU. They're an online school out of Utah. I'm still trying to convince Dr. Watson that it's real. I hope it's real. It'd be real nice if it was. So when I originally approached Dr. Watson about becoming a student teacher here, I told him that I had an astronomy background. And he was like, oh, well, we could definitely have an astronomy class. So I have created like a one-slide overview of what this class would be. Personally, I think it's very important to know our place in the universe, kind of understand where the Earth came from, where it's going to go, and where humanity as a whole can go. It's kind of a philosophical and existential journey with these students. It's very important in their lives, kind of gives them some context onto our role in the experience of the universe. And this actually does cover some standards. So I split it into 2 primary units, which is 1 3-week unit and 1 5-week unit. The 3-week unit covers one of the NGSS standards, which is explaining the Big Bang Theory. So Big Bang Theory is just pretty much the lifespan of the entire universe. We'll be talking about the beginning and the end. And then after that, we have a 5-week kind of style on solar astronomy, which is covering 2 standards. It's understanding how our sun works, how other stars work, and the whole lifespan of those stars and being able to create models based on those. And then depending on how quickly the students are moving or how the class is going, I would have 1 week for a final project that they do that demonstrates their mastery of this Earth. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Any questions on that? Yes.
All right, Mr. Albanito, did you create that slide?
I did, yes.
Okay. And you've got in here that it's important to know our place in the universe to understand how we got here, what we were made of.
Yes.
And you're going to do that with teaching Big Bang Theory for 3 weeks.
To some extent, yeah. There's a lot of, it's an intro class, so it's kind of a spark the judgment for kids, kind of getting them interested in stuff like that. And there's no way I'm going to be able to have a full philosophical adventure in 3 weeks. But when I was in college, I had like 2 years worth of astronomy courses. So this would be one that gets students interested, gets them beginning to learn, and has them be able to, independently seek out their answers that they're looking for.
Would you consider this Big Bang Theory just one of the many ways of how we may have got here or how we were made?
So it's not based on anything outside of astronomical observations. So this is stuff like cosmic microwave background, and then Hubble effect, Doppler effect, scientific stuff like that. I'm not trying to alter anybody's perception of creation, just more looking at scientific data and looking about what we know, looking backwards and forwards.
But you specifically know here. It's important to know and understand how we got here.
Yes.
And what we are made of.
Yep.
So isn't the Big Bang Theory just another controversial theory?
I don't know if this is the forum to have that discussion.
Well, I'd like this answer.
I can. So Neil deGrasse Tyson actually is one of the people that is spearheading this whole concept. And with he has a really good video on the phrase "we are all made of star stuff." So it's based on the life cycle of stars, the destruction and recreation of stars. And that would be something that I would show to the class and his perspective on that stuff. And it's philosophical. I'm not trying to instill any like concrete alterations of what these kids do.
But is it introductory? It's not like you need physics and stuff?
No, I'm not going to make it super astrophysics, not super mathematical. There are 5 students that are interested in this, and there are a couple that are worried about its mathematical intensity. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's going to be mostly exploratory, very conceptual. There's going to be a couple math topics, but it's not going to be too outside the realm of what the kids can do. Algebra at worst.
Is this an elective or is this?
Yeah, this would be an
Does
elective.
it fit the credit within which area?
Science. Yeah, it would be an elective science credit.
Okay.
we only have our secret weapon for a couple months, so
Yeah.
this would only be a temporary insert. This is not for next year's course handbook, but these students would be able to have that astronomy credit on their transcript, because we have Mr. Albanito's experience or expertise in that area. Also note that he graduates 2 weeks before the class is over, and he's going to then continue, and we'll pay him for his time.
Yep, if approved, I would stay the rest of the year and finish out the course.
It would give those students who chose this towards that applied sciences pathway another course if it was something that there was an interest in.
So this is for this year still?
It would get added to a class that, like,
This is a new class we'd offer next week.
so students are in a current class and they wouldn't finish that class, but go to this instead?
The
Just a new term.
ends on.
Yeah,
New
the
term.
new term, it would be at the start of the new term.
But we're in block, so you take stuff for a whole semester, no? Okay.
All the time.
Okay.
Like a lot of the science electives, like world biomes, ecology,
Oh, or
sciences, they're all.
like survival bio, okay, got it.
Like a handful of students that are in Science Olympiad right now, I will probably get my starting courses.
Most other schools offer an astronomy class, they just tend to have the bigger science labs. To offer that.
Barfield offers Earth and Space Science, that's pretty much similar, but it's this plus geology.
I just don't understand why we gotta focus on Big Bang Theory when there's all kinds of theories out there.
Well, it's fulfilling.
We can't teach religious theories.
It's fulfilling a national science standard.
And it is aligned to the science standards. It is science.
And just as a science standard, really says Big Bang Theory.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Should you make motions to take both of those and to share this process as you move?
Correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the updates to the 2024 high school course handbook. I'm sorry, 23-24. No, I'll make a motion to approve the updates to the 2023-2024 high school course handbook.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Do we want to discuss this drawing class? I can understand on a philosophical level that we may not all have the same beliefs and we may not all agree. However, it is something that may be interesting to our kids. If it meets a standard, I don't see why we would deny the kids the opportunity to potentially take the class. Just because we may not agree with the content, or not even necessarily the content, but other things that may feel different. I don't think that it's worth taking that away from kids that may be interested. It's not forced on anybody, it would be something that's upfront. I don't see why we couldn't offer something different.
This is like next week.
Yes.
And you know there's enough people to make it worthwhile to actually have it?
It's 5, but for those 5 students, this is important.
For that particular place in the schedule, there were no other science courses that would have had more students registered that this would have supplanted.
No, correct.
Right,
Yeah.
like, it's not replacing something with more students.
It's not an empty other class? Like, is that gonna be something we don't do? Because like these 5, 6 kids are gonna do something else, right?
Yeah, they came from many different things. One was taking an RVA class, not gonna do that anymore. A couple other classes are pretty big. So I had one student was pretty reticent, he didn't think he could handle the math in it, but he's gonna be fine, he's actually moving to APS history to do it, so. It's a good fit for those 5 students.
So I remember I took a class like that 100 years ago in college, and it was all physics and calculus.
Yeah. I did ask Mr. Albany to calm me down, introduction course.
I like the idea of having it as an option. I just don't think that 3 out of 9 weeks need to be spent on the Big Bang Theory. And that's one of the importance, that's a huge part of that class. There's so many other things I would assume he said that could be talked about that he wouldn't be able to talk about.
Very hard to teach astronomy without Big Bang Theory, and that is a state-of-the-art standard.
Well, that as it may be. I'm not for it.
All right, any other discussion on
Jason, what's your opinion?
My opinion is that we talked about being in a small district, and we have 5 students that we're interested in taking in order to, have an additional pathway in college, and it's an elective course. And certainly, you probably heard me reference, it's like when we get into politics, as far as in like the election season, we always talk to teachers, you can't not talk about things, it's just that you don't expound on your viewpoints, you expose students to information. And Dr. Watson referenced it, it's aligned to standards related to an astronomy course. And it truly was designed for those kids who want that course. I think it's an excellent opportunity in a district our size to let the kids who want to take the class take it here. That would be my viewpoint. I certainly can acknowledge anyone's concerns, I can. I just would say it's an excellent opportunity. We have to, the key for me is that we have a unique opportunity here with him, student teaching here and having that background to do that, which is why we have a one-shot deal to offer this to those students who find that are looking at a career in science and thinking about, this is something that they wanted to explore.
Jesus, is it likely that could be duplicated by somebody else if it's found to be worthwhile and interesting enough to the kids, or what about him specifically?
Physical science background. Mr. Dennison doesn't have that background. He's got a background in teaching and in physics, but as he shared with me, he doesn't have any interest or real knowledge in astronomy. And Miss Vo's a life science teacher, and so I'm just trying to capture lightning in the bottle with the teacher. And understand he's a student teacher, so the record will show Mr. Dennison as well as Mr. Openino, who's in that sort of background.
Will he be all by himself, or Mr. Dennison kind of be there?
Yeah, there'll be least responsibility you often see with the student teachers where it's in Mr. Dennison's room, so being in and out, he's also doing athletic work then, where the whole curriculum has to be approved by Mr. Dennison, the assessments, they meet all the time as we develop them, so.
He's the teacher of record. Mr. Dennison.
Is Mr. Dennison in favor of co-teaching this?
For the same reasons we just talked about, just creating an additional opportunity in a smaller district for students that found that.
Given
to pursue.
I mean, you all know Mark, his knowledge base is formidable. These students have surpassed him in astronomy. It's just something they're super interested in. And so he's in favor of us having this opportunity for them.
I'll make a motion to approve the astronomy to the high school course handbook for the 2022-2023 school year.
I don't have enough information tonight. I feel like I know it needs to start this next week, and I really wish I would have had some information to sit on it before the meeting so that I could feel better about it right now. I'm just struggling with, I'm not against it, but I'm not for it. So that's where my struggle is.
That's fine, you said to move on.
Yes.
Well, you can sign up.
The only thing I would say is it is aligned to state standards. So this isn't we can bring back more information, but I don't know what that will change other than to say that it's aligned to the standards for astronomy.
Yeah, I just don't think I know enough about.
The only problem would be is if we didn't get approval tonight, we would not be able, because of the term starting, we would not be able to run it, which, that's certainly under the board's purview.
Well, I will second it. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Julie, did you just abstain?
I did. I'm not for it or against it. I just don't have enough information.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Make sure I called that right. Okay, next we'll move to approving grade 7-8 trip to New York City for 23-24 school year.
We are looking to offer the current 6th and 7th graders, so they would be 7th and 8th graders next summer, an opportunity to travel to New York and visit some of the historical sites and learn a little bit about the city and a different culture. So the educational value, obviously, when students can travel and get some hands-on learning experiences, something that we've supported in the past as Pittsville School District, and we want to make sure that we also keep that going by allowing our junior high students. Now that we're kind of on the other side of COVID and traveling is a little bit more allowed, we're hoping that we'll be able to show them a little bit more of the historical side of the United States that maybe they haven't had the opportunity to do so with. This trip we're hoping to have repeated in 2 years, so that way the next group of students will be able to join. And we are going to offer a summer school class next summer that all 7th and 8th graders can participate in, no matter if they're going on the trip or not, just to give them a little bit of history and some information on New York City.
So you can just kind of look these over yourself. It's a 4-day, 3-night trip. This is what day one would look like. We would be flying out of Milwaukee, and you can go on this slide or the next slide. And then here's what the second day would look like.
And this is all through EF Tours, so this is all a pre-designed program. We have used EF Tours in the past through Pittsville to make sure that it's kind of a reputable program. So this is all done for us. It's a tour guide that has done this countless times. So it's not like it's Michelle and I trying to figure out what to do and where to go. We would have someone who's very knowledgeable, they've done this many times, they know exactly what to do. So we are just kind of along for the ride and making sure that everyone's safe where they need to be, but they're the ones who are setting everything up for us. And then our last day, we would visit the Natural History Museum, we get a stop in Central Park, and then we depart for home. So one of the main things that we were looking at when we were talking about this is obviously safety and security. Bringing middle school students to New York is very scary, just to make sure that everyone's okay. The reason we wanted to go through a company instead of just trying to figure it out on our own is they give you so much security to make sure that everything's gonna go okay. We have a tour director that will meet us at the airport, and they'll be with us every minute until we get back on. And they also have 24/7 response in case anything happens. They have somebody, if something happened at home, they would know how to get a hold of us to make sure that families are okay. They make sure there's background checks for any adults that go with. There's nighttime security to make sure there's no comings and goings of the hotel, to make sure everyone's where they need to be. So we feel very confident that at all times, in addition to just being with us, that we have somebody who will make sure that we're safe and knows the area and make sure that we're not going to get lost or anything else.
And like Ms. Rego said, we've used this company before through school. It has like a great reputation. And our goal would be ultimately to have 10 students and like one chaperone to every 10 students.
So looking at the trip cost, the trip cost includes everything from airfare to meals to gratuity, everything you'll possibly need. And it includes Peace of Mind program, which is kind of like an insurance where you can cancel ahead of like up to 45 days beforehand. And then it also has the option for travel protection, which would be optional for people if they would like to have that. But for students, if they don't want the travel protection, it would cost $2,041. And if they wanted to add that travel protection, which you can add anytime up to 45 days before, it would cost $2,160.
And this also includes like all the fees to get into every place. One of the things on our agenda is to see a Broadway play. It would include all of that. So there's really like no extra cost to the students.
And there's a monthly payment plan, so $122 a month would be if parents wanted to make sure that they were just doing a payment plan. And we will have some fundraising that we'll talk about also. So we will be having different fundraisers, and we're not quite sure what they're going to be because we like them to be student-led and to have them come up with ideas for what they would like to do. Our idea would be to try to offer 6 different fundraisers with the requirement of being a part of at least 3 of them, just to make sure that everyone's contributing to the program. There is also a global citizen scholarship that they give away. They give away hundreds of thousands of dollars. They said, that's all, $100,000, and it's, needs and merit-based, and I asked if there's an income limit, they said no, it just kind of, they have different kind of categories for people. So what the students would have to do is submit a 3-minute video about how the tour is going to change the way they think or feel about the world and act within it. So Michelle and I would encourage everybody who's going to be a part of it to do that, and we would kind of help them along, help create the video, so that way everyone has a chance to. And then there's also some community grants that we're going to look into. The Walmart Foundation's one, Verizon Foundation, and then we'll be looking into other ones that we might fit the criteria for.
I have one.
Yes.
First, thank you. This looks amazing for the students, so thanks for putting it together and all of the work. I just want to confirm that we are okay using EF, because we had a poor experience when we canceled the EF trip, and I just wanted to make sure we cleared that all up and we're actually feeling good about using EF.
I guess I'd have to see the contract. We've been working with the representative. I don't, and, you know, he didn't bring anything up to us, like as far as, I don't know, anything like that, but,
We were looking at World Strides also.
but the cost of the students was quite a bit more.
Julie, am I assuming, and I think that was a previous trip, is that where the trip was canceled and they did not issue the?
Yeah. Like like they sent money back to families, they sent money, like it was super complicated, and actually I believe at that time it was said we would never use them again because of how poor it went in the conversation. So I just wanted to make sure that, I mean, I actually have had nothing but positive experiences with them, except that cancellation situation. So I just wanted to make sure that we feel comfortable if something didn't go exactly the way we wanted to, that like how we would work with them and how that looks and what that agreement looks like would be positive, just because it was really hard on a lot of families. So,
And I think that their
but I don't
policies
have a problem with the trip, like, awesome opportunity,
I'm gonna
that's super
speculate
exciting.
without knowing this for certain, I probably shouldn't do that, but that a lot of those types of situations happen when you had all those trips canceled with COVID, and I think a lot of these companies changed their policies. You're nodding your head.
Yes,
right?
there's a lot in there about COVID and what happens, and there's a, we can also share that information with you, our proposal that we were given. It has pages of cancellation policies, because I think they maybe learned a little bit from some things that happened, and want to make sure it doesn't get repeated.
Sure. I just want you to have a positive
Yeah,
experience.
definitely, for sure. Definitely something we should look into
Yeah.
too.
New York City is a great opportunity.
And we were thinking it would be like a really good time amount, well, cost wise too, like, but like time amount, 4 days, 3 nights, you know, I don't want to go any longer than that, so.
This is essentially replacing the Washington DC trip, correct? That we used to do?
We had a staff member that was still going to be looking into Washington DC. So we wanted to make sure it was going to be opposite years, though, in case that was still going to
And
continue.
there isn't one plan for this, like this summer at all, so it's not like you would have to choose.
Mhm. And if, in the future, if we wanted, you know, if we thought it would be a better fit to switch it over to New York or to DC, that would always be an option too, because that's also a great opportunity for students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does this need approval?
It
Yes.
does.
I'll make a motion to approve this through 8th grade trip to New York City for the 2023-2024 school year.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the Marshfield Clinic Health System proposal update.
Jim?
So the board approved a couple months ago the initial proposal, but because of the Marshfield Clinic System buyout, their occupational health services kind of went through some changes. And I ended up with a different representative that we were working with, so if you just probably hop ahead to page 4 then, the last page. So here,
a lot of the things stay the same, but as she and I started discussing it, we do the TV questionnaire. That was something that we had previously agreed to. And she says, well, what happens if they show questionable, you know, issues where a skin test is warranted? So a skin test isn't just done automatically anymore. They do the questionnaire. If they seem to be in the high risk category, then a skin test is done. So the charge to the district, if that would occur, would be $59.10. Now, by statutes, we have to do the agreement. By statutes, we're not required to do the skin test, but that price is in line with about what we were paying previously. If that skin test would be positive and they would need to do additional testing, and that would be a condition of employment that the employee would need to pay for. So that's the $222 and $141. So that's if the skin test is positive, then, you know, they need to do a little deeper dive. The quick check collection, that is, so all of these right here in the reports, things that we had previously had approved, prices changed up and down just a little bit on those items. So that's our test for blood alcohol in urine checks. If we suspect someone is under the influence, that's in the handbook that we have the right to ask them to have a screening done. Then anything that's a non-negative, that's something that's just kind of required to verify that it's actually not false positive, but it's top worded. The body mechanics lift test, there's 3 different levels. The reason why we reached out to Marshfield to get those added is because we have requirements in our job descriptions that certain levels of different groups of employees have to be able to lift so much. We've never tested for that before, and I can't really say too much of why we need to have it done, but let's just say that we have the possibility of someone coming into our district that's going to need assistance with lifting, being lifted, and the people working with this person is going to have to be able to lift at least 50 pounds. So we reached out.
Today, just to expound on that, to clarify, that doesn't mean if someone weren't able to meet that specific role, it doesn't mean that they've been not employed.
Right,
means
it
that
just
we
means
fit
they
the
would not
role
work with this
related to their
person. So we're gonna establish a
I just wanted to
baseline for these
clarify that.
people.
Right.
We're gonna establish a baseline
We don't
for
do
these
pizza
people.
strike.
And they'll work with the people, so if they can't lift 50 pounds, they will work with them, they'll give them tools so that they can come back and test again. So then at that point, we need to decide, do we test them manually, or if someone's, you know, beefing up, then we test them again. No one's getting a job eliminated because of this, it's just a matter of, we're gonna have them not assigned to the person that needs this help. And then the other, like custodial positions is a 75-pound limit. So we are going to, we haven't really discussed how we are going to, you know, we're going to just check all our new hires, can they meet that requirement? Or go back and check people we had hired. Right now, we have to concentrate on the people that are going to be helping this new person. We need to make sure that they're able to safely take care of this new person. So those prices were added in there. I did not shop around. This is not something shoppable.
There's not a lot of them.
Not shoppable. They can do this both at, they have a Neelsville satellite office and the Marshfield location. So if, example, we want to send 5 people at a time to have the body mechanics test done, we could just, you know, we obviously pay the person's time, our employee's time to go and have these tests done because we're requiring them. But we could just do a rotation, you know, send 2, 3 of them and then, you know, just keep rotating them in and out at either the Marshfield or the Neelsville location and try and get them all done in a couple of days. And that can be done by during in-service.
So I just have one question. I don't really have a question about what's in front of us. I just have a question that it at least sounds, and I could be incorrect, but it sounds like you're presenting these and we changed policy, like.
No.
So are we just putting these here because it gives us an opportunity to send someone for a pre-work screen? Or are we changing who we send for a pre-work screen?
By statute, we need to do the TV assessment.
Yeah.
So the only time they would get a screening for TV is if they have a behavior that ranks them high possibility. So that's where that goes. The alcohol and drug screening, it's only in the handbook that says if we have suspicion, someone's standing around and smells like a bottle of bourbon, you're going to probably ask them, we will drive them, obviously, we're not gonna put them in a vehicle. We will drive them.
Could you put them in a school vehicle?
But, so it's not, all the years I've been here, that's never been an issue, but we should have a plan if it is an issue. Those are the
Yeah,
screenings.
it's actually the, body mechanics lift test and the pre-work screen level 1 and 2 that I felt like what I heard, and I might have heard it wrong, but I felt like it wasn't just here are our prices if we need it, but we're actually going to send people that we haven't done. So it felt like we were
The
changing our
50
policy.
pound one, it's not a policy, it's in their, job
Job
description
description,
already.
we
But
just
they
didn't
should
have
be,
a way
we
to
just
verify
never
that.
tested it. So now for the people that are going to be working with our one, new person coming in that needs to be lifted, we need to verify that the people working with that person can lift that person. So
We're lifting a person?
No, no. The
small
short
small
version of
person.
it is this. The requirement was in the job description. We just never, in past, we never tested, like, it said you needed to do this, but it was never verified. It would be like me saying you need to bench 100 pounds, but I never have you bench. Now we have a tool to actually confirm that they can meet the requirements that are in the job description, if that makes sense.
So we
It
have a
does.
responsibility to the young person coming in and to our paraprofessionals to verify that they can safely do what they need to do.
No one will be lifting students. It involves without getting into too many, correct. Yes, correct.
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
just making sure we're
It's
not.
Yeah, I
if
just didn't want to get into
If that
the
person needs assistance, we need to have whoever's working with that person be able to do it safely. So it's both for the safety of the student and the staff member, that whoever they're working with can safely do the job.
Sure.
So if we only have 1 or 2 people that can pass it, no one's losing their job over this, they're just not gonna work with this new person coming in.
I think my question relates around the fact that many organizations have job descriptions saying that you can lift 25 pounds or 50 pounds, but none of them or I won't say none, but a lot of them don't run people through actually a physical test to make sure. It's just a requirement of the job. And you have to sign off that that's a requirement of the job. I'm just wondering, how much will this cost us if we're putting everyone, I mean, it just sounds like it's a different practice.
The
That we're,
higher levels, like the new hires, we haven't even discussed yet. They only gave us pricing.
sure.
So we haven't even really talked about any of the new hires.
They asked if this was something we wanted to include in so we had it listed as something that would be included as an option for us to do.
So we don't have to pay for any
We don't have
of these
to-
services unless we use these
Yes.
services.
Correct, and that part of it, I'm totally okay with. It just, I felt like I heard we were, and we were changing our practice to actually send anyone in. And I would like to encourage that we're not asking anyone to lift over 50 pounds. I'd rather spend the money on equipment and things to not have anyone lifting that kind of weight versus.
There will be equipment used and there will be training and protocol on how to use said equipment as a piece of it.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I think we'll have more injuries because we're having people lift even if they pass the test.
You are
Then
not
we-
allowed to manually lift a student. That's not permitted. There would be equipment, as you referenced, that would be used for that.
Sure, which would then not make them qualified to even have to do this because you won't be lifting 50 pounds.
So, I just don't want to get into, just because we get to the point where we discuss too in depth, we are going to
We have
identify.
people things we just simply cannot say.
Are we gonna start using this? And we're not doing this now, right? We're not testing.
Not
No, we're
yet.
not testing
We just need
anyway.
to in this list.
But if
to
we
be able to
approve
have
the
it
list, we can
utilized.
start sending people through this for
That's my
practice.
question.
Yeah, and is the intent if we pass this tonight that job A, you're always gonna do this now.
Is there gonna be any change in our current?
We would put it in our handbook language. I think that we're going to require any of it.
Okay, so we'd
The
have to change
same with
handbook
the
before we start
requirement
this.
for the TV
Yes.
piece would have to go in our
In
handbook
May, the
language.
handbooks will come forward and this will be a part of the handbook.
Yes, yes.
Thanks, that's actually what I meant.
Yeah.
So it's not about this, it's just about, it felt like, This was changing.
This is what it costs.
right, okay.
So currently, these are all services that we may need to,
Yes,
Correct.
incur.
Yes, and some of them we have to do by statute that we haven't been able to do because we haven't had anyone to do them.
So this is,
So
all
the TV piece is by statute, we're not doing that right now.
right, so this is more of an organized list, and we have everything right here in front of us that we know the costs and everything.
Correct.
It's charged, just nothing's changed.
that if we
It's
may
just
use it.
that we may use
Those are
it,
the
because
costs.
it's already currently an option. And pricing, does that look any different than what we've been paying, or how have we been?
Honestly, the only one that we have been doing was the actual TV, skin tech. We had that done through our, Ascension Aspires, I know I changed hands many times, through our nursing contract. Previously, we had that done, by state statute, we're not supposed to do that anymore, we're only supposed to do the assessment, and then if it's deemed necessary, they do the skin test.
So pricing is similar.
Pardon me?
Pricing is similar?
Yes, yes.
So
Other than we would now have to pay for this, the TV risk assessment, that piece would be new that we would have to pay for. That has, by state statute, needs to be administered by a licensed physician.
So currently, if you would have needed to utilize the blood panel, suspected somebody of being intoxicated and teaching, that blood panel is still taken. We're not gonna change, right?
Right now, we don't have anyone in contract to do.
So what would we do right now?
That's
Right
why
now,
we
we
brought
would
this
have
forward.
no option right now because we have nothing contracted with anybody right now.
When we were going through doing the check of things, it was
Well,
discovered. that-
Marshfield Clinic used to be our provider to do that, and then they dropped the services when they merged with the hospital, and now they've merged again, and now they're offering services again. So now we can get the drug screening at Marshfield.
So currently, you'd operate on suspicion, and you wouldn't go have a vote for a blood test or anything?
Oh, right now, well, it's never occurred, so we haven't come into it,
Yeah,
so.
we're in an issue now, so we can do
But
it.
Yeah.
now, at least we have something in place.
Right, it has not happened while I've been here,
Gotcha,
so.
thank you.
It won't be a mandatory thing for.
Oh,
it's
no,
not
it's
mandatory or
only
anything.
if
It's
there's,
suspicion, we now have a tool to be able to.
if someone has a reckless accident or an accident and the officer determines that the person driving in our school vehicle seems to be under the influence, then the district hopefully would have, that they could use this to pay for that.
And I would do, that's a good question, because I would have to make an assumption here is that if there was a gap, we could require a staff member, we would transfer them to have a test prior to returning to work that would potentially be covered under their
Right,
health
and we have to
insurance.
find a place
which
to
would be
do it,
much
because
more
there was
expensive. Like,
a
we would
gap
have
of
to
a
do
couple
it
of years
if
where
it was
Marshfield Clinic
suspicion.
wouldn't even do on-site drug testing unless it was a DOT requirement or a officer
I'm
requirement.
gonna
A lot of
have
times
to do
that money
research
can be
on that.
reimbursed also. Court order.
Yeah,
Okay, but we would need a motion to approve this if that's the direction we're going.
I'll make a motion to approve the updated proposal from the Marshfield Health System to include the occupational health services for 23, includes added services for kidney scan tests and providing mechanical tests.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Move to the safety plan, or safety response plan update.
okay, so this is not to be confused with the, in April or May, I will be sharing the audit results when we had that security audit done with the board, and it's likely going to be in a closed session because there's certain information in that report that we don't want public related to gaps in safety and security.
Well, that was kind of my question. It says confidential next to it, so like, tell us if we can ask a question, like I
Like
just,
this,
yeah,
you can absolutely ask questions
Okay.
about this.
okay, I just didn't want to ask.
That was
anything.
mostly just so you don't share the whole book.
Like, share this with, we don't want Auburndale getting a copy of this.
Oh,
Kevin has to create his own plan.
Got it, okay,
So,
that's helpful,
uh,
thank you.
no, you can absolutely ask questions. It's just to not disseminate it via email to people outside the organization. Just briefly, before you get to questions, a lot of updates to language, to, new people, phone numbers, locations. The major additions to this would be, adding medical response plans for each of the buildings. The principals and Gina and their teams worked, rather quickly to put this together. You have to do your monthly drills. That's a requirement, a statutory requirement. A lot of districts do fire drills every month because that's kind of always was what was thought as fire drill. There hasn't been a fire-related student death since 1958, right? Most of the things you'd see would be medical response or unfortunately active shooter type things, those types of drills. So we try to focus more of our components on practicing the things that we're likely to see. We still do the required fire drill, we'll do the required tornado drill. These medical response plans are now in place for both building along with response teams in each building. This could be a variety of, you can have a student have a seizure, you can have an injury in a lab. The teams will respond. They're going to practice this this Friday, right? Gina is going to run both teams through the practice drill this Friday with the new medical response components here. So those were the major changes, was adding those. And I am happy to say Gina also added, Deb, do you remember what those things are called? Gina ordered 4 devices that are now in place and are going to be placed next to the AEDs in each building that are for choking
Life back.
individuals, life facts.
Life backs.
They go over the mouth and pull on it and it sucks the food out. So there's going to be one in the cap. I practiced. I did it to myself. Just to see the work. I was eating a steak. They'll be placed in the cafeterias, one in the family consumer science area, where we would most likely see food consumption. And then, where were we going to put the 4th one?
Childcare.
Childcare, thank you. Childcare in the infant, toddler area of childcare. So Gina discovered those are very affordable, about $140 a piece to place those in here. And those will be placed and mapped out. So Gina's doing a really nice job coming in as in her expanded role of kind of taking a view of safety in the district that side. So that's the major changes, would be adding those safety response pieces in. Deb, the bomb threat.
It's just a little more user friendly for.
Yeah.
someone else.
It's the page where you saw probably the most yellow one, if I remember correctly. What page was that
It's
on?
on page 6.
6. Thank you. Okay, Julie, what questions did you have?
I think the only question I had was the significant change to the bomb threat. Is that just recreating the document? Like, I didn't see any structural changes.
No, it's just making it more, as Deb said, more user friendly,
Okay,
just a little bit easier to read.
got it. And how often do you train everybody? Like, not student, I mean, I understand you run it with students, but like, there's so much information in here for staff to like know at like, on what to do in every situation.
Yeah.
I just wonder like.
So I would envision, that's a great question.
I mean, just how to help them know all of it when it happens.
So we're anticipating having this be a part of our days back in August as far as an orientation thing. We're working on, Jeremy does the CPR first aid training back when we come back. We actually have some staff going soon on the weekend, getting CPR trained, some current staff.
They did already. on
This
the
weekend? This weekend, we have staff that are getting trained in CPR, specifically those that are like in FIAD, those areas where they may end up more likely to utilize those skills. So this will be part of kind of an existing framework, but I would envision we would do, drills probably. This team, now mind you, these are small teams in each building, so I would envision that might be something that they do quarterly as part of a drill, like a refresher drill, because this truly is the most common incident you're going to deal with in the school as a medical response. Some kind of a medical alert type thing would be this, so it makes sense to to spend some time with that team. And the folks on those teams were selected by the building principal strategically as far as various, skill sets that they possess, and they all will have specific roles that they follow. But you said you have to practice this because you can't pull this out and read it when the drill happens. You need to be able to respond to it, so.
Yeah, and each classroom also has a flip chart that kind of summarizes a lot of the important stuff.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's good, it's just so,
Wordy.
well, it's so much, and it doesn't, I'm not trying to indicate it shouldn't be so
Yeah.
much, but it's like, wow, like, there are like 20 different things that could happen, and here are all of what you need to do in each of those situations, and you're responsible for kids, and like, it's a lot.
That's why it's
And-
important to practice.
Right,
And
and,
each person has a role of that, so like, there are pieces broken down, like who contacts 911. What does the first person on the scene do? So they'll practice specific roles, so each person won't have to think of all of that, they'll know their particular part, and then something we need to even set up is, let's say that, Dr. Watson is on that team, he's gone that day, because you need to have people that are able to step into those additional roles. I will share a short story why this is important to me, is, the admin team is probably sick of hearing this. We did these drills at my former district, and last year, we had a code call, we had a delivery driver for Reinhardt Foods. Had been using a pallet jack on semi, a pallet had a big splinter hanging off, and when he was pulling out, slid his arm open all the way down to the bone, showed up in our kitchen, bleeding all over. They called this response, and the team responded, had EMS was there. I moved the semi because he had his truck parked in the road, and we did that all, and we had folks there within 7 minutes responding. So it's like this prepares you for any of those situations, the gamut of them and stuff. So if you don't practice these things and prepare for them, it's more likely you're going to see chaos if one of these things happens. So it's a good start. Gina has everything lined up, and then what we'll do Fridays, we'll debrief after the drill, get some feedback from staff that are involved, and try to see if there's ways we can make it more efficient.
It's laid out one topic at a time. And I think if you can just focus on one topic at a time, move on after each individual topic is discussed.
it's a good document.
Yeah. The key is communications, making sure if it's, and making that decision, if it's life-threatening, it's call 911, and you don't stop and say whose job is it. First, call 911 if you're the teacher.
I'll make a motion to approve the updates to the safety response plan as presented.
One second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Private school transportation.
These are, just the documents received from Trinity Lutheran Church. So, just 3 students there this year that we received documentation for. I've not received anything from Bethel, but there's still statute time. They don't have until May to get that in, so. And these are the same children we've had previously.
So we budgeted, or we haven't budgeted yet, because this is for next school year, so.
Right.
We'll-
Unfortunately, we can't not say yes.
Yep.
You're telling us it's a formality.
So remember, when you see your representatives when they come to visit, push our resolution.
I'll make the motion to approve all school-aged grade 4K through 12 request for private school transportation parent reimbursement to Trinity Lutheran School per Wisconsin State Statute 12154 for the 2023-2024 school year.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Move to the employee wage increase for 23-24.
So I wanted to kind of set the table here. Pam, was it last week? With the snow days, it's all hard to remember what week was what. I believe it was last week we did that.
Last week, Wednesday.
Last week, Wednesday, it was
Yes.
rescheduled because of a snow day.
Yes, of a snow day.
Pam and I did a listening session, voluntary listening session for all employees in the district to talk about the next 3 items about F, G, and H, and presented similar information that you see tonight in front of you, just so that staff could have an understanding of the process that was coming to the board tonight and allowed them to ask questions. And I would say we had a pretty decent turnout. I was pretty happy with the percentage of employees that showed up. And then we had Deb took notes. And after that, we shared out the notes and the presentation to all staff that weren't able to attend and asked them if they had any questions. So we wanted to make sure that folks were educated on what was going to be discussed tonight. We talked about the biennium budget process and most of those things. So the proposal you see coming forward tonight is for all three. It'll be the same for all employee groups. Would be 2.6 that's in the step and lane that was approved, and then an additional 1.4 for a total of 4%, with the ability to, in October, once we have budget clarity, to come back and look at potential supplemental pay for staff. The board can consider that at that point when we have more clarity about the per pupil funding. That will be available, and if it'll be inside the revenue limits or outside, which will make a difference. Pam, do you have anything specific you want to go through on?
Well, the only thing, if you approve the 1.4 additional that we will add to base, it'll still be paid as supplemental through the year. Because if you approve that, then I'll come back with the step and lane and adjust that to 1.4, just so that, staff that are here tonight recognize that they'll get their step if they've earned that based on whatever the principal's requirements are, then the 1.4 is on their base, and then it'll be added as supplemental and rolled next year into the base. So they don't lose it, it'll become part of their base.
So that all becomes reality if we just say 4%?
Well, for the teachers, it's an accumulative of their, so it's the step and lane, they'll all stay on the step and lane, so like an accumulation of everybody is a little over 2.6%, like in, thousands of percents, but, and then, so one teacher maybe gets a little more, one a little less, but accumulative, they all stay on that step and lane. Because last year, if you remember, we changed our entire step and lane to 4.7%. We moved everything up.
And the folks at the top of the schedule would get 4%.
Would get a flat 4%.
4%.
Correct. Because we do have a letter at the top of the schedule.
Yeah, and as we talked about, we laid out the staff, we felt this was both the morally and fiscally responsible thing to do, is that we wanted to acknowledge the jobs that all of our folks do, and while also understanding that we don't know what the state budget is going to hold for us in October, and felt like this would be a way to invest in that with the ability to add more supplemental pay. If the budget outlook is, rosy in October.
We'll see. Holding adjustment.
When would the pay adjustment take place?
With contracts on July 1st.
Yeah, those will go out in the next couple of, the contracts for next year will go out in the next couple of months.
That makes
Next
sense.
month.
So,
The motion would be,
to approve I make a motion to approve just a second, 2.6 step and 1.4 supplemental for,
should be for all employee groups.
no, for teacher group.
Oh, yeah, we need to do it
And
one
then
more
the
time.
4% for administrators and 4% for hourly, correct?
Professional staff.
A
would be-
cumulative 2.6 for professional staff plus the 1.4.
Yep, that was the first part, but then the 4% for administrators and for hourly?
Yes.
Okay. Do you got that, Deb? Okay,
Extension.
yeah, well, as long as Deb's got it.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Move to the opt-out arrangement.
So the opt-out arrangement, Pam is going to, or Deb has the actual paper copies of that we can look at while we're talking today. So we did a
Do you have the draft?
survey. We were able to determine, well, let me back up for a moment, just because just for public information for this. The opt-out insurance arrangement would be that any staff that did not take the district's insurance and had the availability of taking another insurance, they have to demonstrate they have an alternate form of insurance, would then be eligible for a cash benefit that would be considered, that would be added to their paid check. So Pam was able to, and did a lot of work with this, was able to actually, we know which staff or how many staff have single plans, how many have family plans. We did survey data to try to get a feel for if we were to implement this opt-out plan, how many people would take advantage of it. Now, you're not doing a blood oath when you fill out a survey, but we were able to get a good idea about who would take advantage, and then we were able to do a cost-benefit analysis of, there's two pieces to this. Number one is the insurance savings to the district potentially. Number two would be you're putting the money you're saving from insurance is going into staff pockets instead of to insurance, because that money doesn't just go away, it goes into the pockets of staff. So it's technically, for those that can afford to do that, or are able to do that, it's a raise. It's cash in their pocket. And you see that, Pam, I'm gonna let you go through the specific data.
Can you
Those of
start
you in the
with
crowd
this
can
one,
see
Debbie?
it on the screen. Names were removed for the presentation, but Pam, we were obviously able to see individual staff to know who had family plans and single plans to contact people to get a feel for what they were thinking of doing.
So the only thing I want to add to what Jason said, this is only available to staff who are otherwise eligible for health insurance. So a substitute or whatever it would be applicable to. So what I did was I looked at all of our permanent staff members and I looked to see who was on what plans before any surveys went out, so I could determine worst case scenario. So worst case scenario would be if we had, this is our full-time staff that don't take health insurance. So they don't take our health insurance because maybe they're on mom and dad's insurance, maybe their military insurance, something like that. And then we have some where husband and wife both are employed at the school district. So one of them takes health insurance, then the other one would be eligible, with a caveat that the superintendent would not.
Correct, to expound on
Not
that.
to do that.
Some districts do not give spousal employees a benefit like this. I think I had shared with you all last time, I am vehemently opposed to not offering that to, if we have two people from the same family that work in our district, effectively what you're saying is if you get divorced, you can collect this, but while you're married, you can't have it. There will be language in here to exclude the district administrator from that particular benefit, because I did not want any inference that this was done for personal gain, because I have a spouse who's employed in the district. So there would be two other families that would be eligible for this benefit, but the district administrator position would be, not be eligible for the family benefit with two people employed within the district.
And then we have 4 staff members who are married, but they take the single plan because their spouse takes other insurance. So I'm not counting this in worst case scenario because worst case scenario would be they don't switch either. So they're either not getting paid because he takes single insurance and they're not switching. So worst case scenario, if you went with a $3,000 opt-out arrangement, would be $36,000 or $60,000 if you did a $5,000 opt-out arrangement.
And to clarify, Pam, that would be if not a single person switched because of the
Nobody
benefit.
switched, absolute worst case scenario.
And to fill you in on why the numbers, the 5,000 would be equivalent to what other schools in Wood County are offering, because there is another component of this outside of those savings is when you're hiring, this plays a role in hiring new staff, because other districts in Wood County are able to add that on. If a staff, what you could actually say in an interview is, hey, if you're able to be on your spouse's insurance, we offer a $5,000 cash in lieu. That's $5,000. Or if you hire a teacher who's under age 26, they can stay on their parents' insurance, you can offer them $5,000. So it puts us at a competitive disadvantage when hiring in the county geographically. So we wanted to run 2 scenarios. 5,000 is what the other districts are doing in Wood County right now. So I would strongly propose that we consider the $5,000 one, and I'll get more into that later why. why I proposed the $5,000. That's one of the reasons that I'm in support of the $5,000.
Every district in the county is offering that?
No.
No, the
The-
ones that are offering,
There was a CISA survey that went out, and a Wisconsin Valley Business Official survey that went out, and it ranged from like 3 to 5, with the mid to upper 4,000 as average.
yeah,
Okay, so I did a 3 to 5, so
Marshfield or Rapids,
the math is fairly easy.
one of the two was 5, and I'm sorry,
I
it's on the
can't
CISA
even-
survey.
I
We
can't
actually asked
even
Jim to do
remember.
it, CISA to run a survey for us, so we can see
Yeah.
So
what
it's just
she's.
one other district in there?
No, there are multiple districts that are doing it, and Pam can maybe pull the document up and we can go through it.
I'm not sure if I brought it with me, to tell you the truth, I didn't.
And I'll, while
Figures
if she's looking for that, so my point between the 3 and the 5 would be this, is that when you're talking about, I would be willing to stick a kidney that it's not gonna be worst case scenario. I'm pretty confident, maybe not that confident, but that's probably not gonna happen. When you look at the other benefits, knowing that it's going into the pockets of our employees and knowing that that could make a difference for someone who's trying to decide if they're comparing their benefits to what their spouse has, that could make a deductible difference, is that $2,000. And with what we pay, what do we pay for a single policy right now?
10,211 is our share for a single, and we pay 23,000.
For a family plan.
For a family. That's
So,
our
so
share.
when looking at that difference, if that's what makes the difference to get, to get someone that, yes, I'll take advantage of that because now that covers my deductible. We just felt that the benefits outweighed the potential piece, and that is a big piece for me of giving my principals additional tools to be able to try to hire staff, new staff and new folks into the district.
So this
Right.
is a survey that it's actually the Wisconsin, it's pretty much all of central Wisconsin and some fairly far north, but it goes anywhere from $1,500 in Auburndale up to $8,000 per person at Stratford and North Lakeland.
Which one?
North Lakeland.
What are Marshfield and Rapids in there?
Wausau did not answer. Port Edwards doesn't even offer to support staff, only to administrative staff. Nakusa did not answer. Oh no, they said they do not do it. Marshfield, 5,000 to support staff and 5,000 to certified staff. And Auburndale was the 1,500 to 3,000.
And that's new,
support
actually,
staff,
Auburndale wasn't on
5,000
there before.
To admin,
3,000 to admin.
5,000 to admin.
Okay.
Did you mention Rapids?
Oh,
I don't
Rapids
think,
did
one
not
of the two
answer.
didn't do it. One of the
Rapids
two big
did
ones
not
did not
answer
do it,
this
actually.
survey.
So you can see, Pam will present the numbers, this was after the survey piece.
No, this was before the survey, before we decided,
I thought it was-
Jason and I were discussing it, and before I wanted to bring it forward to staff, we wanted to see
Got
what
it.
worst case scenario would be. Best case scenario would be the people that I knew had spouses that worked out of home that maybe had health insurance options, and then if our 4 singles that were married took their spouse's insurance, then we, could have seen a savings of 76,000 to 108,000. That does not come to fruition. So Deb, if you want to do the graph that looks like this, the permanent full-time staff responses.
Yep.
Okay.
That one.
Okay, so, of our people that responded, we had a few that I had to throw their data out because they weren't eligible. So we actually had then 5 that said yes, they would change, 5 that maybe they would change. They're probably on the fence because is it 3,000 or is it 5,000? Then we had 10 that said yes, they would change, and then 38 that said no, they wouldn't change, and didn't ask why they wouldn't change. But when I looked at the names, most of them had spouses, self-employed, spouses that are retired, single parents, that kind of thing. Or their spouse just doesn't have insurance. So then the other graph, Tim. So then of our people that said maybes or yeses,
We had 12 that said their spouse would have coverage, one that said other, one with military care, and one that said parents. Now, these were only people that provided answers in the survey. I know that there are others that are still on their parents' returns, but these are just the survey answers. And then the last one, Deb. So these colors match that first graph, the yes, the no's. So I have a color chart at the top, a key. So there were 4 people who did not answer the survey at all, but based on my information, I know 3 of them are still on mom and dad's insurance. And based on their age, they'll probably still be on mom and dad's insurance unless mom and dad pick them off insurance. We had 6 people that said yes, they would take it. And that would mean some of our families were switching over. Some of our people that took families were actually going to be switching over and not taking health insurance. They were going to go on their spouses then.
And those numbers, to clarify for everyone, those numbers you were presenting with a district share of that, and then the staff pay about, is it 12%?
12.6%.
12.6%.
Yeah, so, yeah, we pay.
So that's our share, the district share of the costs.
Right, this is strictly district share. Husband, wife, both employed. One did not answer the survey, but we would give it to, this was an answer survey, we still give it to them, and if they don't, if you approve it and they don't fill out the paperwork, I will encourage them to. One said yes, and then again, Mr. Not waiting. Of our married people taking a single, one of them said no, they would not switch to their spouse. One did not answer, but based on information I'm privy to, I knew they wouldn't switch. And one said yes, they would switch to their spouse's return. So of our family people that are just husband and wives, 5 of them said no, they wouldn't switch. Now, some of these were people I thought wouldn't switch. I had 4 people that didn't answer the survey, but based on my information, I know that their spouses were self-employed, so they were retired, so they wouldn't have options. And then one that answered a maybe. And then for these 4 people, then we would save for this one person that would go on spouses, we'd save a singles coverage. One that surprised me, I guess, was the answer for how many people I didn't even have in my original survey because I never gave any thought to people on full family coverage, that they would go elsewhere to their spouses, return to their spouse's benefit. So I had 4 people that said maybe they would switch their family coverage to their spouse. So if this all plays out, if the district has a $5,000 opt-out arrangement, we would save about $71,000. And if we did just a $3,000, we would save about $93,000. Now, this could all, I mean, the numbers could all change. We are gonna meet with M3, our health insurance people, this week. Hopefully our insurance doesn't change very much, but we don't know the answer to that. So once this comes to everyone in May and they have to choose opt-out or insurance, you know, we don't know what part our insurance, new insurance or our new year is gonna play in it.
And a couple of things we thought is Pam and I met and we discussed those maybes. You know, we had to infer, like, why would they be maybes? Right now, the inference would be they're waiting to see if it's 3 or 5 because that might make a difference. Or maybe they're waiting for details with their spousal policy or whatever it may be, there are other options. I would also tell you, so it's not likely, Julie, that worst case scenario does materialize. I would say these numbers, let's just say these don't materialize. The thing I like about it, and I talked about it before, even if we were to break even as a district on this, what that means is there's probably close to $100,000 going in the pockets of our staff members instead of going to insurance companies, and they're still covered with their insurance. So that's the piece that was probably the most intriguing about this was once we started to see these numbers, we were like, if money's going to go back into the pockets, and it's likely it's going to be spent locally rather than going to it. Just there were a lot of boxes that this checked as we went through this.
In various conversations that I've had as well with some of my peers is that how do you get the new people, the young people, fresh out of college people into the schools to work, whether it's a teacher, administrator, whatever. if they can still be on mom and dad's insurance. I mean, you run into that in childcare too, they're still on mom and dad's insurance. What do we have as an incentive if they don't need health insurance? I mean, health insurance at $23,000 benefit is humongous. But if they don't need it, what do we have to offer? You know, this would be one little extra piece that we could offer.
Because otherwise their parents are effectively gonna tell them, take your school's insurance, you know, so. But anyway, a lot of research, Pam put a lot of time into this. Appreciate her very detailed reports, but, we'll take any questions you may have, we'll do our best to answer.
Well, Pam, thank you very much. This really helps break it down for us.
You're welcome.
I guess I would have had a hard time believing that, you know, if we were paid us out, how we would be saving money. But this makes it clear that we win.
Truthfully, I didn't know if it would work either until we surveyed people.
That's a good way of doing
And nobody is held to it, and I made sure everybody knew that just because they said in the survey they wanted it. You know, it comes May when they have to do their open enrollment documents, that's when they have to decide. Because we'll only let them change once they have a qualifying event, that's just, you know, the way it has to work.
How does taking a pay versus insurance have any effect on our requirement to offer insurance? So if someone took the $5,000 and then didn't take a health plan some other way,
They have to
They have to
prove,
verify that,
they
send
have
it to
to
us.
prove, there's a document
Okay.
they will
Yep.
complete that will prove they have insurance elsewhere.
in order
That's part
to
of
get
the-
the payment?
Correct. We
Okay.
have to, we're required by law to do that.
Well,
yeah.
otherwise you'll pay a
Yeah.
penalty because they didn't have
Yes.
insurance.
Right.
Okay,
No,
great,
they have to show proof of insurance to us on a document.
Great. Fantastic.
And you would have a stipulation in there that the husband-wife aspect wouldn't affect this. It's not.
Where they
just
both
writing.
work in the district?
It
Is
will,
that what you're asking?
correct, the spouses that are employed in the district, other than me as the district administrator, will be eligible for this benefit. Some districts don't do it, Chris, and the reason they don't is because they say, no savings to us, they're already, I think that's totally, when you're trying to develop a sense of law, like you want your people to feel like this is a family, you need to give that to them, right? Because you're technically punishing them for being married and being loyal to your district.
But you're just choosing to opt out. I'm sorry, to.
To take the
Exclude
health
myself.
insurance and exclude themselves.
That is correct for the reasons I said, is because there could be an insinuation that, oh, sure, you're gonna, that's totally not it, and that's my way of demonstrating this isn't about me, it's about that it's the right thing to do for our other spouses that are employed. Yes.
How's that money allocated out to people?
What do you mean, how is it?
It's
how
spread
is
through
it
their
paid
pay
to them?
periods,
It has to be run
Yeah.
through payroll, it would be a taxable event.
but it goes on their payroll.
So if somebody had a change where they weren't on their spouse's insurance and their spouse had a change?
It would be a qualifying event, then they could go on, they could go on our
But they would
insurance.
have to reimburse what they've been paid so far?
No, because they wouldn't be charged health insurance
Yep.
in, in arrears.
And we sent out an email reminding staff last week that if you have a qualifying event, please let Pam know, because that does give you the ability to change insurance outside of the open enrollment windows. So we just sent that out to remind staff. Those would be, Pam, those events.
You're gonna make you list all 7?
The big ones.
The big ones, married, divorced, children, you've moved more than so many miles, you know, some kind of life-altering event.
And there's a list of them, and that would be the only way they could change outside of the open enrollment period. And they would not be penalized with what they collected it.
So you have 30 days from the time of that life-changing event, so we have had multiple people get married. Oh, let's not tell HR. So that's kind of been a problem, but it's the only, by law, have 30 days.
And we thought of, we tried to put on our lenses from every different angle. Like if I'm an employee that, well, I'm not eligible for it, but the reality is it's not taking money out of your pocket. It's not like increasing our insurance rates. It's going to the people that can utilize the benefit is what it comes down to. It's not punishing any other, if we didn't have the co-op, the health co-op, like if your rates went up because you had less people in the insurance, then that's not our case. It doesn't impact any of our employees negatively. So those that can take it are eligible to take it.
Is this something, a benefit that we would have to, as a board, vote on annually?
I would say once you set it, you would not need to change it unless you asked to change it. So
If you
you
asked
could
us
just
to
set
bring it
this
back.
up and set a dollar amount, if you, I'm not
saying one way or another, but if you pick 3,000, 4,000, or 5,000 this year, I don't see why you couldn't change that, ask us to bring it forward again and change that amount, but I don't think you would have to.
And we would be able to
This is
give you a report.
A benefit that you would have in place.
What
No,
I'm
I don't know.
suggesting is, I guess, if we were to approve a certain number and, maybe look at stats a year from now to see who all signed up for this and kind of where we're at.
I will know that by the time I do the budget.
Right, you
because
would know that
Yes.
by
And
next
we'll
year.
report that to the board.
I will know it by by June,
And
when
if
I do the
need,
budget.
if need be, we could reassess the situation and possibly increase the amount if we see that there's an issue.
Mhm.
And we could even survey staff at that point, Chris, and say, like, what is that breaking point? Like, is it, 6, because you can break those numbers down pretty readily to figure out where that tipping point is that gets people to utilize it. And I think it ultimately comes down to benefits, certainly, but it could come down to deductible amounts, which if that'll cover that difference for someone to switch, you just don't know.
Well, and I think it's important to stay competitive. I mean, we lead in a lot of things, and this should be one of them. Anything that we can do to encourage, better numbers in our, application process.
The piece, and another piece of that related is we're going to be bringing forward in May with the handbook changes, paid time off. That paid time off piece is part of that presentation with a recommended handbook change to change the sick personal days to just paid time off. Zero fiscal impact on the district because the days are the days, but that was the survey data from staff on that was.
I thought you were gonna share that.
I was, I see, I did, I
This
just.
may not be the platform
Yeah.
for it, but it was overwhelmingly positive.
Yes.
One thing I would discourage though is to address this every single year, whether or not you do it at all or not, because I don't know how many of you have had to go through and change insurance every single year, so you don't wanna, if this is something that goes in place, I encourage you to think longevity. Alternate the dollar amounts if you feel the need, but don't eliminate the whole program.
I think we're both very confident that this is gonna be a win-win moving forward for the district and anything. I think we're gonna get probably more folks taking advantage of it down the road, so.
It'll
But
be
we'll have data.
interesting to see what our employers feel about it.
Well, it sounds like it's a win for the district, but it's also a win for our staff.
Yes.
And it sounds like a no-brainer.
And we didn't want to say that because obviously we want to respect the boards and say no, but the reality was every time we tried, well, what about that? It was like, this just makes sense to do. So. Okay. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have I have one statement about what I'm very much in favor of giving you benefit. I'm not in favor of, and I know it's been asked, I understand why it's asked. I don't believe that we should include in the policy that the district administrator can't have it. It's not about, does Jason get it? It's about in general. And I think we've done a really nice job of keeping our benefits the same. And I would suggest we don't make a change as a board in this. I know he's asking, I appreciate that ask. No one has to take it, I guess, if they don't want it, but I would prefer to not make that exception in the policy, because I think we've done a nice job of not giving keeping our benefits consistent across all of our employees. So I just want to make that comment.
You make a valid point. Said now in front of everyone, so I think that you could just leave it that way for the next person. The only thing I would discourage is the give extra to the administrator, like a lot of these schools do.
Yes.
Correct.
Because then I think it weighs
Correct. And
too heavy against.
it's actually why I believe we shouldn't exclude it, because I also don't believe we should give more.
I see your point, yes.
So that's my, and I know that's not the ask in front of us, but we also get to decide what this looks like, so that is my 2 cents.
And Julie, I think you bring up a good point. If we're gonna do this, we should do it straight across the board. What's fair for one is fair for all.
a dollar amount to start with? What are we thinking?
I would suggest the 3,000 and maybe reassess next year to see where we're at with our numbers. We can always raise it if we see that there's issues, but I want to stay competitive. And I think that the 3,000 is a good starting point, just to see where we're at. That's my suggestion.
And you can, Pam, we did leave it open, they could go in between that, correct?
Oh, yeah, you can go any,
You
I
can
just
go any
did,
3,500,
that's what make it
4,000.
easy math, I just did it between three
Yep.
and five, so you could pick 42, 75. you just
I think that 1,500, I mean, I know I'm a state employee also, and I know what we get paid and what we have the option. And, you know, you've done your research. You know, we could go 1,500, but a little bit more, you know, that, if that's gonna be the game changer. We start at the top, it's gonna be harder to come down in the future if we say it. I mean, I think it's just easier to assess it on an annual basis. And, it's easier going up than it is coming down.
One thing I did not mention, because the board changes the value every year, is the HSA that the board contributes. So they don't lose their HSA if they opt out now. They keep their HSA, they own that. The district would though not contribute anything to their HSA going forward. So you would have that savings for just those, you know, not on all of them, some of them didn't take the insurance anyway, but you would have that bit of savings as well, just so we are aware of that.
That is a lot to staff, because that means instead of getting 3,000, we're really getting 2,000, because we're losing $1,000.
Right, that's why I just kind of brought it up now.
Is that 1,000 put into each individual, or is it more for the families?
1,000 went to families and I think 500 to individuals
Just singles.
this school year.
So my concern is that if we're trying to make this feasible for singles, families, whoever, if we start too low, we're never gonna reach the mark and we're gonna end up closer to that worst case scenario than closer to the best case scenario. And I worry that if we start too low, it's not gonna be enough.
I agree. I mean, this is one of those situations where I would prefer to start with 5,000, and if it ends up costing the district, I know it won't be popular, but we would actually need to lower it. Like, it sounds great, but I actually agree with you. I think it could backfire by not, we could backfire to offer people who absolutely don't need the insurance, right? I mean, like, they're not taking it regardless, and they're getting a cash payment, which is great. But individuals who might consider it, if our pay instead of benefits is too low, they won't.
Well, and you know what Alex just referenced, and
Right.
Pam referenced too, with that $1,000 to $500 difference as well going into that. I would also, that's that point we just don't know, but we just have to infer. Like, I would not recommend going below the 3,000, because that's the data we surveyed, we asked staff 3 or 5. That I would say, but I would tend to be in agreement that I think if we could, you touched on, it certainly wouldn't be popular, but if all of a sudden we saw we were bleeding money because of this, we could certainly just next year change it and say, listen, this isn't.
Well, I mean, you have to do without all benefits, right? I mean, if we can't afford our health insurance plan, when we get our renewal, we have to look at what we're gonna do. I mean, so it's no different. I mean, you only have a finite pool of money, and you have to make it.
If you think of it that if you only have one person in your family change, that would, and you did 5,000, that would pay for 4 people on that. You also, to incentivize the person to change out of their family insurance, it might take 5,000, but you could also cover them for 4 people at 5,000, or 5 people at 4,000. You know, trying to say to trade it off to try and break it even.
Well, and if it's a deductible issue, so my thought is, okay, they're taking our plan now because the deductible is lower, but say they're getting 5,000 and that covers the deductible, or at least
Plus something.
almost all the deductible, and that offsets the health savings. Also, I just worry that, I don't think, when I look at what deductibles are for most families, 3,000 will cut it.
What schools in the county did you say were already at 5,000?
Marshfield.
Marshfield is?
Well, Stratford was at 8.
Yeah, I know, it's,
What is
I know it's
deductible?
uh,
What is the deductible?
Our deductible is 1,500 to 3,000, so 1,500 for single, 3,000 for family.
And I need to get my computer like that, but I need to, I know, Pam had data from, I believe that was the business manager.
Right, so this is, so cash and lieu at Bowler was 4,800 across the board. Lakeland Union is 5,000 across the board, no, excuse me. 2,500 across the board with Lakeland Union. Marshfield is 5,000. Merrill is 4,000.
The one I had a question about, Pam, was one of two, and that's why, okay, here we go. We're rocking out. Port Edwards or Nakusa, I emailed
Port
the
Edwards
superintendents.
did not give any to their position, their support people, only to certified staff and admin, and they gave 4,500.
4,500.
Yeah, from Port Edwards, but only for their certified staff and admin, so none of their hour will get it.
Well, and-
I don't support that. Rhinelander is 2,500 for both parties. River Lake is 1,500 and 4,500. Rochelle doesn't do it. Shawano is 1,200 at each. Spencer is, well, this is increased. Spencer does 1,500 and 3,000, so my guess is they split it single family.
But our proposal was to be
Stratford is
consistent.
8,000 each. Watoma, 1,000 to 2,000 each. Arborvitae Woodruff is 3,000 each. Minocqua is 4,200 each, and North Lakeland is 8,000 for each type of employee.
So what's the scenario if we would say a number like 5 and we find out a year from now, how would we be losing them? Because I don't think, nobody wants to be in the situation when we approve something and find out it wasn't fiscally responsible and then have to take it away, even if you say, well, we have to lower this because X, Y, and Z, you know, the economy, whatever, all people are gonna see is less.
Yeah.
Less. So
You're right.
I think we wanna be careful not to put ourselves in a position where we have to take something away.
Going forward, though, we're never going to know, well, to some point, we would know for the opt-out who's opting out because they're getting it elsewhere, because I have to get a policy information, and I could just change the document to say who's the owner of the policy, you know, spouse or, you know, father, mother kind of thing. So we would be able to tell them going forward what we're saving. By them not taking a single with us, we're saving $10,000. By them not taking a family with us, we're saving $23,000. You know, I would be able to tell that going forward, and I guess
In
you
my mind, in
gotta,
theory, it shouldn't work out bad because it's not like insurance is gonna suddenly go down in 3 years.
No, and then.
right? If that's a problem we have, and we say, hey, we're gonna,
Right.
you know, give you more benefit in the insurance side of it.
Then we absolutely have to take the fiscal impact, but then we can't miss that piece of having that as another way to stay competitive in the hiring component too, as far as hiring people is a big piece too for us as well.
So 2 questions on that, what you just said. Worst case scenario, it looks like 80,000, right?
That's if no one took it, and if no one switched insurance and everybody got the
Worst
benefit.
case scenario is 60,000 if you took 5,000 each.
So why does it add up to 80, but what's the
No,
20,000?
that's our total cost, so the 20, Deb, can you put this one back up, please? No, the other one. Yep, right here. So these people I'm not counting because we're either gonna pay them or they're gonna not take the insurance. So I'm excluding them completely. I'm gonna say they're just staying where they are on their single insurance, and we're not gonna pay them. You know, so our worst case scenario is
Got it.
36,000.
Got it. Thank you. That's
welcome.
super helpful. And so worst case scenario, it costs us 60,000 more. If we pay out 5,000, can we afford it?
For next year?
Yes.
Yes, I think we can,
With what we
based on
just
other
approved.
attrition that I have seen, you know, with people that have said they're retiring. I think that we can afford that for 1 year, but that's just it. I mean, if we don't see this movement, and you know, even just 2 people, 3 people need to move, you know, depending on how you look at it, you know, if 2 people move, you're already in a win. Here you would need about 3 people to move off of a family.
It is just highly unlikely that no one takes advantage of that. And that's what it would take for the worst case scenario, is not a single person. And the family plans are truly the ones when you're, you know.
And if we had 4 maybes, if they're on the maybe fence because, well,
well, I'm only gonna do if it's $5,000. Well, that was $90,000 in savings, because they were all family plans.
Right.
But I didn't ask them, you know, what was the maybe cause, I'm just speculating it was.
But right now, is it accurate that on the family policy, what's with only HWE?
Husband, wife,
Oh, got it, okay. That only one said maybe, everybody else didn't answer or said no. Is that correct?
correct,
And then 4 on the family policy said maybe. So that 1 up on top and the 4 down below are the 5 here that you used in this, is that correct? In
the
the,
5 that I
that you
used.
used as
For the
potential
family.
savings?
No. This piece here is only husband, wives, so when I went through the presentation and I had the one, with the families, I wasn't even thinking of people that were already on a family that might wanna change. I never even thought about that, I just was looking at the husband, wife only scenarios. I didn't even think about people on a full family plan, if they would consider changing. And that's what surprised me, is that 4 people say maybe to that. So, can you give me the other numbers again, sorry, Deb? I probably have them here, I can flip back and forth. Yeah, so this one, so these people right here, are they on the maybe fence because they would only do it if it's $5,000? Well, that's $20,000 it would cost the district, but we could save 70 or 92 on,
If the maybe.
Those- if that's what the
because of
maybe is.
5,000.
and maybe the maybe is simply because the spouse is also a teacher in a different district, and they don't know what their insurance is gonna do.
But everybody answered, there's not like 10 people that don't have
I
insurance.
had
No, we have a few that didn't fill out the number 4.
50, no, they had 62 altogether. What did they have, 48? I think I had like 58 or 60 altogether, but then I got rid of a bunch that were ineligible, or people that I knew had already put in their retirement documents, so I didn't want them to skew the
That's
street.
good data. So this is authentic.
This is everybody that's here
authentic
that I
data.
know was gonna be here next year.
And we will have firm numbers in June of the opt-in, opt-outs.
If this is approved, they have to, in that open
Declare.
2-week window in May, they need to decide, are you taking the health insurance or are you taking the opt-out arrangement? And then when I do the June budget presentation, I will know what those numbers are. And this is savings across the board. This is not just Fund 10 savings. Some of these people are grant funded, some of these people are Fund 21s, some of these are 80s,
Well, yeah,
50s.
and maybe Pam, I think you may have referenced this, is let's just say we have a projected 10% increase in insurance costs. That would be additional savings that if these folks stayed, it would be another 10% that we'd be spending, so you could get an additional 10% savings if whatever the percentage insurance goes up with those savings. So there is some risk certainly in this. I think it's very little risk, but there's some risk, but there's a lot of ability for reward, both for staff and you know, out with our own employees. This is, you know, like a game changer for all the employees, having that type of money in your pocket, while still having the insurance coverage for our most vulnerable employees, the elderly employees that are susceptible to the, you know, days off where we don't have school, those types of things. Good discussion, good questions.
This does require a motion.
Well, there is a risk, right? And we can reassess. But when I look at it the other way, I understand there's another risk there too.
It's only I mean, in my mind, there's an initial, we're putting money into this, can we balance what we're spending? Moving forward, there's not necessarily, I mean, when you hire someone, you're hiring them knowing that you could have health insurance and their salary. I mean, like, everyone's eligible for it. So you don't ask in the interview, are you taking insurance? Because, I mean, like, so that doesn't happen, right? I mean, so we are budgeting and planning.
I always
Of
budget
course.
family health insurance.
Right,
family
I mean, so,
yes.
it's really a one-time switch over. Will this cost us more? Will it cost us less? Is it cost neutral? because into the future, it's a moot point. It's our benefit package. And we would look at it like all of our benefit packages. Can we afford it, not afford it? Are there any, like it, so it's really a one-time switchover. It's just the potential unknown of what will happen in the one-time switchover. But if what you're saying is in the one-time switchover, if it does not line up that there's a savings, we can afford it next year, then I think it's a risk that we should take. Because again, once we switch over, it's our plan. And if we can't afford benefits for people, we have to look at everything anyways, right? Like it's a big, complete package.
I'm more in favor of a bigger number, even for, you can chalk up the cost for retention and recruiting. Especially if we're higher than some, or even with some of the bigger districts in our own county. Because that's, Wausau's doing, we're not really competing that much with them, but Marshall Rapids.
Salary wise, it's with, if you're looking at raw salary, it's Marshall and Rapids are the outliers.
Yeah.
In the county.
Yeah, I mean, there's just with everything, I said, we really loathe to have to come back in the year and peel some money back, because that'd be like the worst thing for us. How many of you guys all think I remember?
I just feel like we could have to come back next year, depending on how the budget goes, and say, we can't give the raise we wanted to, or we need to adjust our health insurance benefits too. So we have that risk with every single benefit we give. It's just whether we wanna take the risk right now and hope that it pays off. And ultimately, it's putting more money in our staff's pockets if that's something they can choose to do. So, I mean, call me competitive, I don't want Port to beat us, so I don't necessarily want to do lower than Port. I mean, they're the type of staff that would want to be here. I think we also need to be competitive with Rapids and Marshall. We can't compete necessarily in salary, but we can make our benefit package similar. We might get some of those people that maybe wouldn't look at us otherwise. And we're gonna have some shoes to fill, so I want us to be in the best position to be able to attract the best people here.
What's your
Make a motion? My recommendation is, with the research we've done and knowing, it's not likely the worst case scenario, even if we were to extrapolate it further to look at the difference between 4 and 5, if 25 total people take that policy, it's at $25,000. All it takes is one family plan. If someone chooses not to take it because of that difference, to me, breaking it out, I would recommend the $5,000 for the very reason you all, the great discussion is, we review benefits and compensation on a yearly basis, and we'll take a look at holistically. Next year, we're in a reasonably good place going into next year right now, as opposed to many districts. And I think the benefits outweigh the risks with this
And it's a
particular.
$1,300 difference, or a $13,000 difference in 4 to 5,000. I mean, worst case scenario. I mean, that's just how many staff it is, so it's not.
Because how many pay periods right now for professional staff?
They get 26.
26, so you're talking, before taxes, you're adding $195 to a paycheck, which is a lot. I mean, that's a significant, for those that can take it, it's additional, percentage, along with your 4% to the cost of living.
So I will make a motion to approve the opt-out arrangement for health insurance eligible employees. Actually, I will make a motion to approve the opt-out arrangement for health insurance, all eligible employees beginning 2023-2024 school year at an annual rate of $5,000 to be paid out through payroll effective July 1st, 2023.
Yes.
I'll second.
What did you say for?
5.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
You can abstain. Okay, opposed? Motion carried.
Okay,
All right, we'll move to the hourly sick bank.
I will try to make this expedient.
There's handouts.
Yep. This was the
Oh,
chart.
That's the PTO chart.
Oh, gee,
That's not the hourly chart.
where is the PTO? Well, we don't, I mean, not PTO.
That was for your board update, but
Yep,
it didn't come in the board update.
It says PTO.
yeah, I know.
Well, you're talking the hourly
What
update.
Pam is saying is Jason forgot to add PTO to his district administrator's update slide, that slide with Nikki,
Okay,
which is this slide right here. This is a staff survey about the support of PTO, by the way. As you can see, it's highly supported by staff. Hourly sick, there isn't a handout for the hourly
No.
piece, so this is what it comes down to. Professional staff have a sick bank that when they meet their maximum days at the end of the year, that whatever days are left go into a sick bank that staff can use for catastrophic illnesses, situations where they run out of sick leave. Our hourly employees have never had one of those here, which for the reasons I said before, you know, they're valuable employees in the district. So Pam and I discussed, we have the ability to use some seed hours available. That because people don't have a sick bank right now, we've had some retirements where there were hours that would have just kind of disappeared into thin air. So we have the ability to seed that bank with hours, and then hourly employees would have the same opportunity as all other employees at the end of the year. If they had excess, if they were at the top of what they can bank, their hours, instead of being lost, would go into a sick bank for hourly employees. So it brings it to a level playing field for all employees, having that ability to have a sick bank. What's happened historically in the past, it's been shared with me, we had an hourly employee experience a situation in some administrative assistants donated their sick days in excess to this individual, which obviously is wonderful, but we want to make it so we don't have to do that and that they have that availability to have that sick leave. That'll be part of the handbook coming forward. I just wanted to put it on your radar. It'll be part of one of the handbook changes that come forward in May to have an hourly sick bank. And we're still discussing what the hours, but we would seed it with hours to make sure it was available for staff that would need to
Right,
use it.
through attrition,
And
basically.
there's a process that they apply. If someone wants to use those, they put it in the application to use hours for the sick bank.
So it would run the same as the staff.
It would run identical to the
Identical.
teacher sick bank, yes.
Yep. And that'll come forward with handbook.
Okay, any discussion or questions? Okay, then let's move on to updates to the school field trip procedures handbook.
Okay. Pam, is there anything you want to share? There's really no,
The first few things was, the outside Wisconsin or continental US, that just aligns with policy. The indoor trampoline parks, inflatable parks, that was a insurance recommendation. Just so parents know and staff know that that's, you know, what's happening. Page 8 was a language change. And on page 10, we clarified that, and the only way, this was, if a chaperone stayed in a room with a student, it would only be if it was an immediate family member, and then that was the only other person in there. So it could be like, Susie's my daughter and, you know, Sally's her best friend, I can't stay in the room just because Susie's my daughter, but Sally's in there. So that was just to clarify that. On 17, the cancellation piece, this kind of refers back to the EF tours, and that's why I said I need to see the contract. Previously, any trip that was canceled, the money went back to the participant and not the district share, didn't come back to the district. So we kind of, we had to get the attorney involved to get the fundraising dollars back into the clubs that had sent that money in. And then on page 17 in F toward the bottom, it's just to be aware going forward, after these other two policies will be approved, that we can't assign dollars to students anymore going forward.
and that'll be to update we had asked for legal counsel related to what about the folks who have already raised private funds, they have them earmarked. And the advice we got from legal counsel today was that stays assigned to those individuals. And that's in a separate account, and that moving forward, we follow the legal recommendation, because he said that the previous money was raised under the assumption it was private. He said he would not recommend going back and changing that and making that $100. So all folks who had money that's designated individually to them will stay designated to those students for use, but everything moving forward will be the group fundraising dollars.
Including grades 5 through 8, which our policy said shouldn't do it originally, even though we broke policy, he said keep it
with
that
those
way as
people.
well, because that's what the
Because they
families were told. National travel competition, that was, to cut down on travel if it's more than, let's see, the district will cover costs for travel day, if it's more than an hour and a half away.
Did you do that? Yeah, she's getting to it right now.
Yes, so then, correct, then any extra costs, so then in part P 1A2, extra costs before or after the competition. So like if you arrive early to do sightseeing, that would be the cost of the advisor. The district won't pay that for the advisor. We'll pay all the fees for the advisor, the travel day through travel day. Just not that extra sightseeing things.
So that needs to be amended to buy. It's
To
the
buy,
wrong
right,
word
I
is struck
lectured
out.
that like a.
So there'll be an amendment that,
Why we had that.
the wrong word is struck out. there.
Right, so
Which
buy
would be
will
the for
stay
should
there,
be
for
struck.
will not be there. Just some clarification of where to go for policies. On page 20, it was again, just to notify them that it's not private fundraising anymore, it's group fundraising. I really, just as a sidebar, I liked Ashley and Michelle's idea of, you didn't have to be to every fundraiser, but 3 out of 6. Then everybody can share. I think that was a really good idea. I like that idea.
And that would be allowable, and that meets one of those components of doing.
Right, then everybody
So
can
it's the
still
opportunity.
share, but you're required to still be there for some of them.
I agree, and again, I've read all of the attorney's information, so I don't know that we have a choice. What, I'm not worried about the person who steps up for 3 that didn't need money. I'm worried about the person who needed to do 4 more things because they can't go if they don't raise more. Like, that's the person I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about the person who has to get told, too bad, suck it up, come participate, be a part of the team. I'm concerned about how do we support the student who can't afford to go if they don't raise 3/4, and these trips are expensive. The whole group is not going to raise 3/4 of everybody's, right? Like, they're just not going to do it. So those are the areas around, and my request of, I understand that some of these things are just the way it has to be because it's the law, but what other options can we offer as a district to support students and families who, in a sense, when we approve this tonight, we're making it not possible for them to go.
Well, and I think the scholarship piece would be one avenue, as long as it was,
Right, we haven't gotten that yet, so.
but that'll address a component of the scholarship piece. But and to be clear, legal advice is exactly that. The board can consider it, like, it's not legal orders. However, I would strongly discourage the board from not following legal advice, but it's advice to the board. And it's about that tax exempt status of the organizations that we don't want to jeopardize. But we all agree, Julie, like, we want every student to be able to go on this. I think the fundraising piece will address some of those concerns with students. So.
Yeah, so that's my concern, is that I just don't want to exclude students.
Yeah.
It's what they have to do in order to be able to participate. I mean, even going to New York for 4 days is $2,000. Like, I mean, a lot of kids are excluded if they can't raise a big chunk of it, and if we, 20 kids are going, there's no way you're raising 75% of 40 grand. I mean, like, you're just not doing it, it's not possible. So, that's the reason I probably have so much feedback on this, because like, I just don't want students to not have that experience if they're willing to work really hard, and so. Sorry, Pam, keep going.
Then we changed on page 23, just that to submit to the superintendent if you have to stay overnight out of the area over 90 miles, kind of relates to the hour-and-a-half drive. I think that was it. Oh, and then a date change, obviously, at the bottom of the front page. That would change the date to tonight's night with this.
I'll make a motion to approve updates to the school field trip procedures handbook as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We move to first reading of new policy 661, designation of depositories.
Deb, this was one of the WASB policies. We don't have a policy on this right now. So this is a new policy with clarification for, it was recommended that districts have this in policy somewhere. We did not have it.
Okay, so we have a depository, but we don't have a policy that says we have to have a depository. Okay,
This was a recommendation, for that reason.
I don't have any comments to move that forward.
Chris, you can move that on board?
Yes.
All right. First reading updates to policy 460, student awards and scholarships.
So based upon the recommendations, once again,
I don't have any comments on this.
Anyone have any?
earth-shattering.
Did this touch the travel scholarships? Or I didn't get to this. The last paragraph.
That would be that last paragraph on Alex. Is that what you said, Pam?
Yes.
Oh. My readers don't.
What's a Form W-9? Would that be just standard, they would have that available?
Yes.
And that just provides their federal ID number so that the scholarship third-party provider can pay and, give them a 1099.
So the criteria list, as long as it's uniformly applied, so it can be set as a needs-based application process.
So how will this actually be operationalized? What does this mean? Do we have a District Fund 21 club, third-party foundation?
Well, the Fund 21 clubs, we have a ton of those. The
Sure.
third-party scholarship foundation is an auxiliary community foundation. We left it generic in case that would ever change. So the way it would work would be, for example, is, if a trip had money in it, some of it could have been money returned from what we had gotten back previously when all those trips were canceled, but they could take that money and then have a scholarship application for their club and award it based on this set of criteria. And then the Fund 21 pays the scholarship third-party provider. They pay EF Tours, XYZ Tours, whoever, and then gives them the 1099. It keeps it from being a taxable event to the student. So if we turn around and give that money to the student, it's a taxable event for the student. This way we pay it to the tour company, it's a taxable event to them, but it gets applied to the students.
And the key components, it could be needs-based. It would address those students you're talking about where it doesn't have to be applied equally to all students. They apply, you set the criteria, And
Correct, and it should
You
not,
can make
the
that
attorney
shortfall
was
for those
specific,
students.
it's not to be applied to fundraising, so student A, you know, it can't be that money you have set aside for students for fundraising. You know, specifically the
this would be
private,
in addition
the
to.
private component, so if Johnny's got this money set aside to him, the way to get it out of the club is not to do it in a scholarship. According to our attorney, that can stay in the club. Going forward from tonight, if you guys approve this, it all is now group fundraising.
Does somebody finance that scholarship or is this?
The clubs do.
The club.
So the clubs may have money set aside for, you know, they may say we're not having a trip this year for the next 2 years, whatever. I want to do, you know, $500 scholarships, $1,000 scholarships, whatever they can do that. And we have a lot of clubs that do scholarships now through Marshfield Area Community Foundation.
Just the problem for me is that realistically doesn't solve the problem going forward unless we have another COVID event that puts $3,000 extra in my account. I'm still going to have kids that are working really hard and still not raising the money we need. In addition, the burden just got put on me as the advisor to make sure that this scholarship is written adequately with correct criteria. Now I also have to judge that criteria, find people to hold it as a neutral decision. But my job just became significantly harder. And additionally, I'm also not benefiting those students through this process.
But in theory, someone could put money there, right?
Right, anyone could donate
Anybody
money.
can donate
exactly.
money to the club. Yeah, and Alex, I understand completely, but this is legal, like, legal counsel has given us directive of what we're allowed to do and we have to. We're trying to balance, we want kids to go on these trips. I mean that authentically. We want to do everything we can, but we're also, as a district administrator, I'm obligated to advise the board to follow legal advice on this because it can put us in jeopardy of losing our tax exempt status. So we want kids to go.
I understand that. I would just like to hear some creative solutions for workarounds so that we can still honor the students that need them. And I think that it happens in other places, like, for example, the one I was going to suggest that you just rolled out was when I was in high school, if you worked like the brat fry for the Lions Club, they would pay you a scholarship based on the hours you worked. How is that privatization? Is that not just a criteria?
The Lions Club can do whatever they want to do. We
But-
can't do it.
yeah,
The Lions
that's
Club can do whatever they want to do. We just can't do it.
But they're a nonprofit as well, correct? So I'm
That's-
asking, like, what would the reason behind not having the hours you work be the criteria for the scholarship? What would the legal reasoning?
Well, that's a really good question, because that was actually one of the thoughts I had. I would make a criteria for a scholarship that you exhausted, like,
Which you could.
what you could, right? Like, so you participated in all events, so you absolutely have to contribute the most you can to what
Apply
the
for the
group is
scholarship.
owning, or what the group is creating. But, you know, the question that just came up, so that particular situation, there are a lot of opportunities in the community that the kids can fundraise. So
There's just not flexibility through us as the school district of the club. Certainly, if the Lions wanted to do that, they could do it. That's what I'm saying is, we,
If we did it as a scholarship, that would.
Right,
as a
so-
scholarship, you could set whatever criteria you want. What we're saying is if it's tied to, you know, specific fundraising, like things, it has to be divided as a group. Like that was very clear in the legal advice that we got.
We're not going
But
to
there are-
consider that over 306 events for the trip Michelle presented.
And I would be very cautious. I just want to caution us all here, because I know that's not the intent when we're using terms like workarounds, when we're getting legal advice. I know that's not what Alex meant. I'm just saying we have to be very, we have to be very careful about saying it, because we're not trying to circumvent statute. But what we're saying is, yes, in those situations, if it was outside the school district, they could certainly donate money to the club to be used in the scholarship or in that capacity, like the Lions Club.
What if we had a general, like a general account or a general fund that these scholarships could be placed into to be utilized for miscellaneous?
I can't answer that now. I
So
don't know
can we make a
specifically.
fund 21 that is just like a travel fund or like a travel scholarship
The
fund?
only thing I would caution would be, there's so many different
clubs that do travel now, that there would be more competition between them, and how do you manage that? How do you determine,
Well, it's
you know?
partly what we pay the commercial area, like that fund.
Well,
Is
you're
that right?
saying outside of the school district, put money into it. That is, we have that established
Right.
already. So typically what happens, example, if drama does a club scholarship for $500 to whatever many people, that money goes to the foundation pays the colleges directly. So they suggested the scholarship application could be just, for travel, could be very similar to the one done for education. The criteria could be very similar. The committee could be the same people. So you don't have to create the wheel with that, but then whatever dollar amount every year, then it's a wash account. You know, the district pays that fee to keep that wash account there because we have multiple clubs that use it. So that we don't have any clubs that just say, oh, we're gonna put this money for seed money, like grow. With the market volatility right now, that may not be the best choice to try and grow your money either. Because we're up to like, 0.75% to 1.45% in one of our accounts, so that's, we're still making a little money there.
Can there be a general savings account where these scholarships may go?
I don't, just a regular savings account, we could, but the threshold, we're talking $1 million in the account to get even a 1%. That's not gonna happen. Our general accounts, anything under 25,000, they're not paying anything on right now.
We're not losing anything.
We're not losing anything either, because it's just a savings account. So right now, everybody's money is sitting in checking, 0 interest. It's not stuck in investments or
I'm just thinking
anything.
like she said with this broad fry though. So the Lions gets these students to come in and work with them. Then they offer these payouts or scholarships, whatever you want to call them, to the general fund. And then when needed, I guess the process now of taking money from the general fund, incorporate it into these. Can a general fund donate to?
So,
Why would
we
they need to?
can't use like general fund, because that's like our big pot of money.
We
So
can't
use it
we-
for-
right.
Separate, not the.
Why would the Lions Club not directly give a scholarship if you want to drop
Why do we call it
$500?
even a scholarship? The Lions Club can do whatever they want.
Right,
They have
right.
3 students work for 5 hours and they want to pay them $10 an hour and just hand them over $50 cash a piece.
Yes,
We have no control
we
over
have no
that.
control over that.
Whether the child puts that in their piggy bank and uses it to pay their tour costs, we have no control over that.
So it's such a-
My thought with mentioning Lions Club though is, are they nonprofit as well? They're for profit. Okay, so,
It's just social.
It's a social.
okay, so I was imagining that they did that kind of just the same way that we would do it, right? Because then they don't have to count that as pay, right? They don't have to count that, and the people receiving it don't have to count in.
Yeah.
as
Well,
income.
And what the
That's
students
absolutely.
have made a lot of money partnering with the Lions Club is by having a 50-50 raffle
Right.
on weekend tournaments. And so they donate their time in the concession stand and then allow a 50-50 raffle. However, we've used the school's raffle license for that, which then the question would be, if 6 students and their families did that and $600 was made, can the Lions Club just give $100 to each of them, even though the event was run on the Pittsville raffle license? I mean, these are and a lot of students have raised quite a bit of money that way.
The Lions don't have their own raffle license.
Well, they do, but
This is kind of news to me, so I'm just sitting back here
Yeah,
not
because
saying
I
a
thought
word.
the Lions, I was in the Lions Club down there, and being up here, I thought we had a raffle
Well,
license.
that's a separate question. Like at this point, then I would start thinking about how I can get my parents to be more of the key organizers of fundraisers so that my hands and the school's hands are off of it and they're raising money for what they say they're raising money for and they're distributing as they see fit.
and then it doesn't ever come through the school.
I'm not involved, right? It's their trip to pay for it. They're organizing a Brock Pride themselves to pay for it and they distribute the monies as they see fit.
Right, and that was the suggestion we had to start with, so long
Yeah.
as they don't say Pittsville High School Rock Fry, we can just
They can raise it and do what they want
Pittsville
with it.
students.
Going on a
Rock
trip to, and that's fine.
Yeah, you said you're going on a trip.
As long as you don't misrepresent that
Yeah.
you're putting the money into the school, as long as you don't misrepresent that.
So
they
we're
can have
held to
outside
strict
That is-
parameters, but there
That's
are
great,
ways
but
to.
that isn't what was said the last time. It was said if it was a school trip, it had to.
That it would be.
And it would actually have to be the whole trip wasn't. So that's what was shared, but if this is okay, that is a
Yeah.
fabulous solution.
No,
That
we
was-
share, they can earn money outside of the district however they want, because I suggested they could make blankets, they could have a garage sale, they could do all these things and make money
As
themselves.
long as they don't have.
And put the money in as though that's their family contribution.
Okay.
Any fundraisers run by the district has to follow the district rules.
That's part
But
of
the
the
district
legal
wouldn't be able
advice.
to buy like the brats and everything with.
Correct,
those
you cannot.
taxes, like, they wouldn't be able to
cannot.
buy or provide any of it, like.
Correct.
The
So
parents or
and be
whoever would
school
have to organize
sponsored or
and do all
school
that, they can distribute the
supervised.
money however they want.
Correct, and then the families, that's the family's portion of contribution.
And then
So
we are
they're all
covered
on track.
legally, we meet all the criteria that was laid out, and that's perfectly permissible, that was just described.
Which would allow kids who need to raise more money to be able to do events and say, Pittsville students going on this trip,
Yes.
so the community knows they're supporting it, but it's not ever coming into the district.
Right, and on the other side of the picture, we would have to stay out, we have to, stay out of the advising parents, or putting in writing that this is
Right, you
for
don't
this.
wanna do that, you're
So-
absolutely right.
So there would have to be a trust factor also on the parents' end of things, because we can't be involved.
Exactly.
And just for clarification, can I be involved in assisting if we're not using school dollars or advertising it as a high school fundraiser, or would I have to, as the advisor, be completely removed?
I mean, like, could you go work if it's a rod stand, could you be there at work?
Could I
don't see any
organize
reason.
on
I think on your own time.
Yeah, if on
We
your own
can't
time, you
control it,
couldn't
but we're
organize
trying.
it, you couldn't run anything, if you just went to volunteer your time, I don't think that
Yeah.
itself would be a
You-
problem.
I couldn't be involved in like organizing it on my own time through Facebook.
Not as a paid
As long as
advisor,
representing
I
yourself.
question, that's a paid
Well,
advisor.
I'm not paid for Spanish trip, I'm paid for international club, which is completely separate, I'm not paid at all for Spanish trip. It's a separate Fund 21 account.
Okay,
That
so
would be a
I
question.
hate to be the wet blanket here, but we are so off topic.
Yeah,
Right?
and I would say, what we're talking about now, none of that's changed by the policies of, like, that piece, we can get clarification on the specific thing that Alex just asked. We can
So,
ask him.
I'm great moving this forward,
Yeah.
but I would really appreciate next month, when it comes, like, to know what this means.
Know what that means?
So it has that, a third party foundation administering the awards and scholarships will pay the district, but what does that look like? Have we done?
It's the same
No, I
as
just
Okay.
explained that, so any travel scholarship would run the same as an educational scholarship that a club issues. So if they say Club XYZ wants to give $5,000 in scholarships, it goes to Marshfield Area Community Foundation, they pay $5,000 on behalf of each student to the tour company. They send the 1099 for that payment to the tour company. That way it does not become a taxable event to the student as an award. It goes to the travel company, then the travel company applies it to the applicable students. So that's exactly how we do it for educational scholarships that Fund 21s do. So this is not just about fundraising dollars for trips. This is also, how do we, this whole policy also refers to the other scholarships and awards in the district as well.
Okay, so everyone's okay with moving this one forward for a second reading?
Yes.
All right, so then let's move to first reading of updates to policy 723.3, emergency school closings.
So updated language, more in line with practice that we utilize right now with that virtual component that we have available.
Were there any questions with this? Is everyone okay moving it forward for a second reading? Okay, and we move to first reading and possible approval of new policy 723.1 exhibit, school violence event drill evaluation and report to the school board.
So this will be an annual report. It's part of the DOJ requirement that we need to get caught up on. We're a couple years behind on getting that submitted, but the building principals log their drills each month. There's a special form for that. And then we'll do a report for the board here coming up. That will then be submitted as part of that packet.
Okay, do you need a motion on this?
We would like to have a motion on this so we can utilize it yet this year to submit the form, please.
So this is essentially just as approving the form.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the school violence event drill evaluation and report to school board 723.1.
When you saw in the news the districts that weren't in compliance for meeting requirements, this was typically one of the reasons is the not submitting the report.
Awesome.
all right, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we have the second readings in letters N through R. There were no changes that we made to any of those policies, if I'm remembering correctly.
None.
So if you feel so inclined, I would entertain a motion to approve all of those items.
Should we do anything? You want to talk about it, meetings? No. I'll make a motion to approve, accept the second reading and approve the updates to the policies listed in through R.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Legislative report,
There's nothing right now.
nothing much.
And Mary Ann and I talked today, and we're kind of in a holding pattern here, waiting. There's back and forth going right now.
Okay. Any public comments then?
No public comments.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to move into closed session for Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 one C.
Also,
Can you get any requests?
Awesome.
A roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I'm requesting my cops for the, I think
Absolutely.
if you guys are okay with that, because we have some information from the sheriff that's relevant to the conversation.
Absolutely. Ready?